So far, so good.
Good afternoon, call to order, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Councilmember Switzer.
Here.
Councilmember Phillips.
Here.
Councilmember Holt.
Here.
Councilmember McCafferty.
Here.
Councilmember Shacker is not here. Vice Mayor Granillo.
Here.
Mayor Armstrong.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Discussion items. Item A, town council will engage in strategic planning and discussion to determine priorities which will guide the budget process. Madam Town Manager.
Thank you. I'll be brief in my introduction because we have a lot to go over today. You know, we've talked, and I think this council more than any understands some of the challenges we're up against. We don't have a property tax. You know, TPT revenue is very important to us in finding that's the only really way to increase other than grants, which we are trying to do our best. And find that revenue source, I think, is important to us, and then how we can preserve the TPT we have, even though the state legislature continues to try to erode that, and we're going to be going through a couple different, potentially, efforts where I appreciate both Maggie and the mayor, and we may even engage some of you in that, because it's so important. And I don't think they understand the impact of rural towns like ours that don't have a property tax when they tinker with that TPT, what that makes. Also looking at those opportunities that could increase our TPT and how we can put that into our priorities operationally and strategically from you and council in a more tangible way. So we talked a little bit about that. And then, as you know, the last couple years, we have been, concerned where revenues are going, where the economy's going, where federal funding is going, and so we have tightened the belt and really held the line. Typically, operational budgets, those ongoing things, towns and cities will make an adjustment and say, okay, we're only going to do a 2%, or you can only do a 3%, according to the CPS each year. The last few years, we have held the line, and there were no increases, even though all of the budgets have felt the reality of inflation. So even when you're holding the line, you're still having to do more with less. So we've engaged, again, our leadership in each of the departments to see if we could do that again and hold that line of where we are operationally, even knowing that the impacts of inflation, like she knows with food, at the senior center, it's a reality. So holding the line and not increasing the operational budget, even to meet CPI, means decreases in the services or how we do things. The other caution with that is we're going into the second or third year of holding the line, and the concern from an operational standpoint is it becomes then, we're going into the territory where it becomes philosophy rather than let's just tighten the belt and then we'll adjust. And then we've all been in those organizations that kick the can and defer maintenance, and that is not a sound operational philosophy either. You can only hold the line and kick the can realistically a few years before it starts having impact. And we've done a lot of things to put our fleet, to put our services, to put our infrastructure in a good place and start to move forward rather than backwards. We do this for another year or two. We can do it again this year. And we're going to try and do that. But we continue to do that, we're going to lose ground. We're going to lose ground in our infrastructure. We're going to lose ground in our services. And even more so, and Katie will talk a little bit about it, if we don't grow, we actually lose. Because if everybody around us grows, our percentage of state shared revenue based on those populations continues to go down, especially with the addition of Santan this year. Going to be impactful. So you guys have a lot of tough decisions to make. We're going to have some good conversations. I applaud all of these folks sitting over here because they really rolled up their sleeves to see what they could do to keep the budgets where they were, where they could take things away and not impact services and the grounds we're making with infrastructure. And so they'll talk about and share some of those with you, where their priorities, where they see they're going. And really want to hear from you what your priorities are so we can integrate that into those requests that we're going to make from you later. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to our financial guru, and she can lead the way.
afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. This budget workshop today, as Terry was talking about, we really want to get a good idea of where you stand and what your priorities are through this as well, but wanted to give all the leadership team a chance to say their piece as far as what they see as far as the upcoming needs in this upcoming budget season, as well as for future budget seasons for their areas. With that, as always, the process of budget involves aligning our budget with community goals, where are we headed, and ensuring fiscal responsibility while we're doing that, and then making sure that we do it in a way that's sustainable for the town long term, not just for the short term. With that, so far we did put out a public survey again for the public as well as one for council, and then today's retreat is the next step in that process. Going forward, we're going to have several scheduled study sessions with council in April. And then following that, we'll have an additional session on May 12th, if so needed, after the discussions in April, if we still have things that are undecided or undetermined at that point, following our normal schedule of tentative budget adoption towards the end of May, and then final adoption in June. So far on the internal side, what we've been working on is Terry and myself actually met with Matt, our fleet manager, and each department that has vehicles. So we sat down and actually looked at utilization, needs, replacement schedules, trying to work towards a more comprehensive replacement plan. So we're not running into issues where we have, like in 2017 is a good example, we replaced a lot of police vehicles all in 1 year because it had been deferred for so long. And then you get to the point where you're having to replace those vehicles again. So we really want to schedule out and plan our fleet process in a more comprehensive way. And the new data tracking software that Matt has been huge in that, because now we actually have data points to look at instead of just perception of usage. So that's been great. We had those meetings over the last 2 weeks.
And I would like to interject on that, both from Katie and from Ed. It's really good. We were very excited when we first got the RTA software and made that investment, because now we have data-driven decision-making we can do from our fleet. Because we could look, when we sat down, we could look at hours, miles, where are areas where things aren't being used, where can we combine, and that's based on data. And it's so funny because somebody thinks it's being used a lot or thinks it isn't being used a lot, but data maybe support something completely different than that. So it's good for the town to finally have somebody that understands that, put a program in place down in our fleet, and to be able to sit down and talk with, we were able to determine that we had 2 pool cars that we could go to 1. That's a big savings for us. And again, like she said, there wasn't a methodical plan for how we're replacing things. How can we spread it out so that we're doing 1 each year instead of 6 every 6 years? How can we better use that? And we have the data for the first time. And we can look at how long a vehicle is in place, how many miles it has, how many repairs it's getting, so we can make really good decisions about how we use our fleet in a very methodical, fiscally responsible manner. We've never been able to do that as a town. So I would just want to take a moment to recognize that and share that with you. And, Steve, make sure that Matt knows that, and Katie, that those were very exciting meetings to have, and to be at that point where we finally had that kind of data that we can manage our fleet in that way. And that's big for us. So I want to make sure that, to share that with you, that's another step forward in how we are being fiscally responsible as a town. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So in the next month, you all won't see the budget numbers until April, but in that interim time, we're going to be having our department meetings. So every department after this meeting today will work over the next 2 weeks to get their information in for their final requests. And then we'll be meeting, Terry and I will be meeting with each department to go over those at a preliminary level. And then we also have our SIPCAC, so our Capital Improvement Plan Citizens Advisory Committee meetings. They'll be reviewing the capital requests during the month of February. So we'll be bringing all that information back before you all, once we have recommendations from both the town manager side as well as our outside boards and commissions. And then, moving on, so what do our residents think? So the survey that we did, this is the second year that we did our survey. We had a little bit less participation than the prior year. We had 144 participants this year. Last year we almost had 200. Again, most of our respondents have actually lived here for 6 or more years, and most of them, we allow anyone in the area to take the survey because we realize a lot of other people use our services. There's a lot of unincorporated county areas that rely on us for different things, but 74% of our respondents actually live in Chino Valley, and the majority, 60% of our respondents were over the age of 55. So with that, our community budget priority survey ranked importance of key priorities from the public. So the top ranking item was business retention and attraction, grocery and retail store options. So that's something that we continually hear from the public, as like you all are aware, that everybody would like another grocery store. And I think there's a desire for expanded retail. Sorry. Sure, you've never heard that before.
Maybe we should lift that moratorium.
You gotta lift that agreement we have with.
Yeah.
So we realize that is a need, that is something that would be helpful for the TPT that we bring in, as well as just keeping our business local.
Does this data include our responses?
It does not.
Okay.
No, in fact, with that, we're gonna touch a little bit on the strategic side of that, but we didn't get responses from all the council members, so we didn't want to just do a subsect of data there. So we'd rather discuss some of those things today. So we encourage anyone who did fill that out, as we get to the council priority sections, if you want to say specific things about it, please bring that up as
Put
well.
them on blast. Who didn't do it?
So we don't have the data.
It was anonymous, so we just didn't get all of those.
I did it.
So we'll talk about what we learned from it, but we won't put the statistics up because we figured it doesn't keep them in anonymity if we did that. We respect that.
So you don't have the results from that?
From the council survey, no, not to present today.
We'd be interested in still seeing them even for one person short.
We were 3 short.
3 short.
It says 3 and you were slackers. I want to know which 3 of you.
So that's
None of your
why.
business. Like, put your
Headline.
And that was like reminders and stuff too? That's like not acceptable.
We did do it
Ashes of the wet noodle.
anonymously to keep with open meeting law requirements and things
Yes.
like that. So it was, we'll rethink how we do that in future years. I think,
There you go.
is how we're
We'll see if
gonna
we can, and
approach
put
that.
more pressure and get those in. Before she moves on from this slide, I want to point one thing out, and you'll see it later, but as you will see, second to last is senior center services. And we had this phenomenon show up last year as well, where in this priorities, it ranked almost last, but when we get to the other ones, it's completely opposite. It keeps showing up at the top, so not sure if this is because we're doing it well, it's not showing up here, but it's valued, so it shows up somewhere else, as opposed to roads,
And that's,
you know, people know, so that's what we think that means, but just wanna point that out, that you see it's very low here, but it's completely opposite later.
in fact, to that note, we actually had a lot of comments this year were very directed at the senior center and what an impact and a life difference it makes for a lot of individuals in our community. Because, you know, there's certain members of our community that don't have the option to get food from other places or a hot meal, and they really were thankful and just had very high commendations for the senior center and specifically the new chef as well. They are enjoying the new chef. I got 2 comments on that. So,
Okay, so if it's not broke, don't fix it.
correct.
Right, exactly, okay.
So, other things, as we all know, street maintenance has remained high on the list, as well as protection of the aquifer and water sources, followed by other things that are still important. Now, this didn't let people exclude things from it, they just were able to prioritize. And that just gives us a picture of what's top in their minds of things where funds need to be directed. and
What's
marked.
beautification of Highway 89?
So that is kind of like, I
Not
would say
painting the
code.
roundabouts, like going to the roundabout?
No, and
Code
it's
enforcement,
tiny,
like
code
making
enforcement,
sure-
storefronts.
Oh, yeah.
the
Storefronts.
Connex boxes were a
Yes.
big part of that
You
piece.
know.
I think there was a lot of different complaints about that previously. so.
Yeah.
We're working on some
Signage.
design aspects for our zoning code for 89.
That will help address that.
Some standard things, so we might see a bunch of split rail fences because, I mean, you look outside, what's happened here at Town Hall and it
Makes a difference.
makes a difference and it's a small investment.
Is code enforcement still getting a lot of negative feedback from 89?
They've been really
Businesses?
focused on residential lately. So a lot of, in the higher density subdivisions, I'm doing a lot of cleanup, but,
You have like two divisions of code enforcement, right? Business and.
so they
residential.
overlap right now. We haven't split off into commercial and residential. They're kind of doing north half, south half, Chino, with some overlap.
And then when we have weed season, it's just weed season. Yeah.
This year, that's been all year.
Yeah.
It's also, you know, fencing and wayfinding could be considered under that beautification.
Don't use the plan system, Highway 89.
A lot of it, that kind of came a lot of that fencing that was going on.
So moving on, the overall satisfaction with the current state of our local streets. 80% are unsatisfied or very unsatisfied. That's pretty on par with where we were last year. We did have a shift from some of our satisfied and very satisfied to the neutral category this year. So neutral was pretty small last year, and our satisfied and very satisfied dropped quite a bit. So obviously,
At least somebody.
we all are aware that that's an area where we need to
Worse.
put some focus, so.
And that was, and this is kind of interesting because over the last few years, you put more money into local road improvements than we ever have. So you might think that would shift, but I think it just created more of an awareness that my road wasn't done.
I think it's also because last year we were doing the total rebuilds, and hopefully this year we're gonna start with the new overlay instead. And maybe they'll be happier next year. They'll all call Steve and go, oh, thank you. Don't think so?
It's just too much.
There's-
Well, the
You're
first
never
road
gonna
still-
satisfy everybody.
Because you're not gonna get to their road.
But it's still,
We don't even know the status of first fund.
it's not gonna change this year.
So these are just, we had an open-ended comment for people to add areas that they felt needed to be improved road-wise, or if there were specific things that they were aware of. So this is just a summary of those comments. The stars to the right side indicate that we're looking at including that in this plan. Right now, there's some coring that they're doing on the engineering side to ensure that the chip seal is going to be sufficient for the road plan that we had discussed previously. So with that, Road 1 West, both north and south, there were the most comments regarding that. And with that, there is going to be there's an alternate option if we have enough funds that would cover a portion of that. I don't believe, it goes outer loop and it doesn't go up quite up to center. I believe it goes to,
There's that street where the power lines are. I'm trying to think what that's called. Go from one north down to
It's one east, I think.
I think you're right. I think
three
it is.
south, it would be,
Yeah.
On outer loop, yeah.
Oh.
Where the cops always hang out, right there.
So, Perkinsville, as you all know, we're trying to explore options with the county on that. And then there's just continued other ones. Also, Road 1 East, between Center and 2 North, not that entire area is on the plan, but a portion of that is. And then for some of our smaller, more neighborhood areas, we are looking at some parts in Chino Meadows. That's not the whole area. There's just a few select roads in there, as well as Fire Sky, Yokiwa, Cochise, and those are the ones that are on both the citizen surveys as well as the recommended plan.
while you're doing that, I'll just wanna make a comment again about, strides in making good financial investment and data-driven decision-making. Again, I wanna comment Steve. One of the things we're doing this year that she mentioned that we've never done before is we put a plan together, we go out there, and then we start to do a road, and we don't know what the base is, what it's gonna be. We may end up putting something down that isn't going to, because it's clay or whatever, and so now we just made an investment that probably won't last. He's engaged a firm to do coring on all of the ones, so we know exactly what's there, what the base is, what the substrate is, what's been done. So we know if whatever we're going to do is going to hold or will alter the plan if they get information that says otherwise. So that we make sure that these streets and how the application we're going to do has the base so that it can sustain itself. So again, another step, thank you, Steve, for putting that in place so that we're making the best use of living funds. We don't want to put something in and have it deteriorate because we put it down on clay, right? Right, thank you.
So this is, other than the Perkinsville, which has been switched out from the alternative, so this was the one that we had gone over in detail a few months ago with council. So those are the ones where some of these are getting addressed. And then, as you know, the list is
Much longer than we have.
much longer than the amount of funds available, but.
Do we wanna stick with our original plan based on
So
public's input? Do we wanna shift
So
more
I
towards what the
think for
public
this
wants?
year, we need to, because we're getting ready to bid it out, and we won't get it done this year if we stop and then have to rebid. But I think this is gonna be very important for next year's. You know, there's been some commentary that maybe we put off a year and hold the money and then put it all into doing a Perkinsville by using 2 years' worth of money. Those are the kinds of conversations we wanna have, but I think this year we need to stay with the plan or we're not gonna get it done this fiscal year.
But-
They need to finish this and get it bid.
This year, don't we have a overlay for Perkinsville scheduled?
No, we
Chip
decided,
seal?
we decided not to.
Yeah, I was
You
gonna say, we
decided-
don't want to, because we're gonna
Yes,
tear it
you
all up.
decide- we got from you, the input was, let's wait and get a better long-term
Perfect.
plan. I will do
Okay,
it.
we've already funded some of these for this year, and we just have to
Yes.
wait till the weather and wait.
That's what the stars were
Okay, so
saying.
those have already been funded, so we're looking at projects for the following
Yes.
fiscal year.
Yes,
Okay.
so we are addressing some of the needs, and do keep in mind that, while this is a good, little snippet of what the public thinks, it was only 144, of our members of public, so there, again, it might be a perception versus reality, and that's where we do rely on, the data that Streets has as well, so we can make sure that we're fixing what needs to be fixed.
And if your cores come back, you don't need to come back to the council and say, hey, we're not gonna do this street, you're gonna just keep moving forward.
No, when we had the study session with you, you gave us direction of priorities, but we would work within the plan of what we could do and what would make the
That
best
makes
use.
sense.
Thank you for asking.
Overall comments included all roads, too many to list. Again, we're not unaware of that. Pothole repairs that don't last long, that's something that we're hoping actually does improve this year. Now that we have the asphalt recycler and some of the other equipment,
Hot patch.
the hot patch, it'll help kind of have a full functioning set of equipment that we can remediate those things a little bit better. And then drainage and water flow issues, we're continuing to look at the plan because we do have unspent Yavapai County flood control dollars that are for our community. So all of those things are something that.
Don't have enough for the vet truck, though.
Chino Lake.
We need that number.
And then our safety, sidewalk, speed, school access had a few number of mentions. We did ask if our residents were familiar with the Chino Connected app. 65% were not familiar with it, or 35% were familiar. As you all know, it's pretty new still, but that's an area where we can enhance some outreach so people are aware. Yes, sir.
Can I make a suggestion that, Mike, you just did the video on the town's website, how to get notifications, which was awesome. Maybe we could do something like that.
That's a great idea. Put
For
it on the list.
you two, and post it so then they have instruction on how to sign up.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a great resource, so we want people to be able to use it, but if they're not hearing about it or don't understand how to use it, that's obviously not
Just go
going
with
to.
what's the truth.
It's not effective if people aren't using it.
So continuing on, as far as what people thought should be our budget priorities, this is where, as Terry was mentioning, senior center was one of the top responses here, as well as public safety and water source aquifer protection. And then library services was also very high on the list, as well as special events. So those are the fun things that our community does that residents can go to for free. That's fun things that enhance the quality of life. for
Quality of
our
life,
residents.
I think our sense of place and identity, I think our townsfolk really value those opportunities where we come together and you see that sense of Chino pride, especially because we don't have a town center. And so we get that sense of identity in place in these events that bring us together. They have an additional priority.
Katie, 144, how many were in the county, or were they all citizens?
No, most were residents, but
74%.
20% lived outside the town. In the
About 28.
So we're talking about the aquifer of these, the 20%.
24.
Because most of those are probably on wells.
Probably a
County,
lot.
so they're probably
portion.
Could,
talking about protecting
Oh, like animal pills.
the aquifer. All in of aquifer.
We just asked aquifer, but I think in general it's a push towards water resource protection.
yeah, the AMA and outside.
They wanna keep getting water, but they don't care what you do with it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and that's a good point too.
Yes.
So the water and sewer system expansion is very low on the list, as well as water and sewer system maintenance, which, as we know, a very small portion of our residents actually relies on our water and sewer service. But it's still necessary to maintain the system that we do have and make sure that we're not hitting exceedances on the wastewater side, as well as making sure our water quality is where it should be. As far as biggest challenges facing our town, business retention and attraction. So again, this had a subcategory of grocery stores and other retail options. That's biggest. Street repairs and maintenance, and maintaining our rural character was the third highest. People like the way we are here. They like being in a rural area, but I think the majority see the need to bring in additional businesses, which is true. We do need to bring in additional business revenues as we've all talked through. And then employment opportunities and managing growth and development are also high on the list. And like anything, this is a balance. You can't really maintain your rural character if you're growing out of control, but you have to have some measure of growth and development, or as Terry was mentioning, your state share revenues do decrease.
And I will, another interjection, I will, that focus, and even before this, saw this, that Maggie and I have been having conversations, and one of the benefits, again, of Jessie is, about the fundamental core of what she's doing and where she's putting her efforts. It was really diluted in the past, several years between some council priorities, town manager priorities, and, she said, how can we get these off and I can focus back on true core economic development and business attraction and retention. So being able to shove grants over here, because she was doing a lot of grant stuff for us, is big. And then also prioritizing and taking some things off the plate. So she's really like now doing legislative stuff that's absolutely important to us. And then focusing on the core of these business retention and attraction. And we're going to be doing an economic development study session with you, talking about priorities to help feed and direct the direction she's going in. So that's very exciting, I think, and I appreciate the conversation.
So moving on to other open-ended comments. Overall, we heard people want to protect the essential services that they enjoy that enhance their quality of life. Roads to be fixed and other infrastructure. Bringing in businesses and retail. Balancing growth and preserving the character at the same time. Improving safety and enforcement. There were a few comments about traffic speeds and school safety, and a lot of support for adequate police staffing and enforcement. And then expanded recreation and youth opportunities. There weren't, there was a lot of requests for those teen type activities that are somewhat lacking. During the summer we've got a lot of programs and things. There's not a whole lot of community center type things. Not our community center, but like a teen community center. Even though we have a lot of different events and try and do fun different things at the library and those. But there were a few mentions of Boys and Girls Club, but for younger age children, so not the teenage as much, but for the childcare after school kind of requests.
And then real quick,
Yes.
whatever happened to the request from Boys and Girls Club to come here? Last year, they did a presentation to us.
Yes, we met and talked with them a couple different times after that and talked with the school, and what they were looking to do was duplicating programs that were already in the school system, and they wanted to use school resources, facilities, and schools
Just
that were
didn't work
doing
out.
that. So unless they were doing something independent on their own in a new facility and new services, it really didn't make sense.
Okay.
So both their board and their director agreed at this time, it doesn't make sense until they have the financial wherewithal to do something standalone.
They were
Does
here,
that
weren't they?
sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
were
came
here.
here.
They just couldn't make a go of it.
Okay.
So moving on, this is what we currently have for our strategic priorities.
Oh, can you go back one
under-
more time? I know you mentioned this, but this is where the comments were coming in about the senior center and the impact and the value of their lives.
Correct, critical.
And, that it's interesting, we put that under protection of essential services back in COVID and stuff, things that were defined as essential services were water, sewer, streets, police. But we were hearing from our residents that these are essential services in their quality of life, that, like she said, these may be the only meals they get, this may be the only social contact they get. So, and how important some of these events that we have, whether it's Territorial Days or December to Remember. So those are those investments in quality of life that our folks value, that there is not financial reward. It's simply, like our aquatic center, our citizens have said over and over, we don't care how much it costs the town, it's value to us. And so we're seeing that they're saying there are these things that you do simply for quality of life that are very important to us. And I didn't want that to pass by without making that point. Thank you.
So with our strategic priorities, effective government, quality of life, water and land stewardship, quality infrastructure, and financial stability, and each one has different detail areas underneath. And overall, we want to know from council if these still reflect what you believe are the most important areas for the next 3 to 5 years, and if any should be added, revised, or removed, and if overhaul of the strategic priorities and plans should be revisited. We're not going to go through that whole thing today, but we would like
General
your input.
feedback, what do you think? Do you think these 5 categories reflect what you think are priorities? Do you think they need to be changed? Do you think tweaked a little bit? Or do you think they need to be completely overhauled? So
Are
taking
these
a
in
look at
order
this.
of priority, or are they just the way they're listed?
no,
Yep.
they're just how they're listed.
So what are your thoughts? This is your first point of important feedback for us, because we only want to invest the time in this that you think is necessary. Because we'll invest time. If you think this needs to be rehauled, we'll do that. If you think it needs to be tweaked, we can just have a conversation and do that. If you're feeling this still reflects where we're at, we won't spend much time in it. So what are your thoughts?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Public safety, does that fall under quality of life or effective government?
It could probably both, it probably crosses
Probably
into
both.
several.
Yeah, we have it
Quality
kind
of
of under safe and secure community because if you don't have that presence,
Quality
then
of life.
in general, you're not having.
Okay, so the public safety is safe
And
and secure.
especially because
Okay,
when we
all
saw
right.
the feedback,
I just
people
didn't
said
see
they
it
moved
listed.
here because of their sense of safety. And so we see it more as a quality of life than as an enforcement.
I think we need to prioritize economic development. We need to get business in the town.
Okay.
We're gonna
Yeah.
die if we don't.
Well, because you get that good, and then the others will help take care of themselves.
It would probably be under financial
So would
stability.
you put that
but-
as the top priority under financial stability?
Yeah, I
and
would.
Add that green square that says economic development?
Sure, I
Okay.
think so.
I-
Because especially
Well,
if food
prosperous,
tax goes away,
kind of
we're
goes under
dead.
prosperous communities, so.
It
But
does.
we could expand what prosperous community says and do
More
prosperous
specific
community
economic
and
development.
economic
You could just
development.
change the
think-
words
change-
on
let's
one
Change
change-
box.
economic development.
Yes, let's change that box to be more specific. That's a good one.
I think those all, bullet
I
points
think
are all
they're
pretty solid as they
Okay,
say.
Still true today.
okay.
Really
That's a
nothing
good
new.
point, and change prosperous community, because that's kind of vague, to economic development as the number one under that. Any other input or feedback?
I think under effective government, the first one, connected community, that has changed significantly in the last year. I think a lot of that probably goes to Michael pushing things. But we, you know, my age is Facebook. There's so many different formats out there we need to push stuff out on to get people involved because they aren't there. I continue to hear people, what airport? You know, we're what, 4 months into this now, and they're just hearing about it? And unfortunately, we're in a period of history where people don't read periodicals, so newspapers don't do us any good, and half the town doesn't get the newspaper we get, so we've got to find a way to push our message out. And I don't know what it is, you know, other than the internet.
We are, actually, Mike and Sandra are involved in a rehaul of our website, because we're trying to make it more user-friendly, because that's one of the things we hear, that it's hard to find stuff, it's hard to get around, so, you know, we want to make that a primary point where people can go to and feel comfortable and find things as a starting point. And then we have some other thoughts about how we can try to reach populations we haven't reached before in different methods, so. Agreed, absolutely agreed. Because we know there is a silent majority out there we're not hearing from.
Shouldn't the expansion of water and sewer be before quality of infrastructure?
Yeah, we can absolutely move the order, but right now we don't have them
Like you
prioritized.
say, those aren't prioritized.
No, they're just,
But we
They're just
can,
there.
if that's something that.
if you want to move it
Yeah,
up,
if
so it's.
council wants to adjust them, so we actually do have a priority list, so moving financial stability to the first, and then however you see that moving on, we can put in all of our
Yeah, if you
documentation
wanted
that
to-
it is prioritized.
If you want them in order, I mean, that's fine too. They're all kind of, that's why they're up there. They're all important.
Parts of that.
But
And I
if
really,
you need it to be prioritized, that would be we don't, but.
I think from the staff side, we know that they're all
Okay.
very important, and they all are interconnected, really. Everything we do it's just trying to get a map of their city.
and I like, from what you said in talking about prosperous communities, kind of a vague thing, but being very specific in economic development, I even see that, what are the thoughts about that infrastructure and asset management, so kind of, we have water and sewer system down below. So is infrastructure, you know, roads and asset management is building and fleet kinds of things. You know, I think understanding what your priorities behind those words, because I think that is a little vague. Is it, for quality infrastructure, is our roads and our road system, you know, number one? Is it, you know, our buildings and fleet? What would you say is in that infrastructure and asset management is most important to you?
I'd say roads and sewer and water.
Yes, because sewer and water, even, there's two parts of that. We are small, but there are certain things that we are required by law, like the expansion of the sewer system, and they're very expensive. So if we don't manage that,
And we need those to be solvent on their own.
Yes.
Get them out of the red category, so. They need to be an asset, not a liability.
they need to be self-sustaining. That's what we're trying to move to.
Get a lot of calls about this 40,000 trips up and down the highway, and Olson's is selling bunnies, and the Methodist Church is having a bake sale. What happened to our electronic messaging sign that we were gonna start promoting stuff alongside the highway? We got 40,000 people running up down the road. Why aren't we got something out there that tells them what's going on?
we use it for town events, like we have it, we used it for the special sessions here, or for the overflow parking. We've only used it for town events, we use it for when we have festivals. We have not used it for anything that's private, because then you get into that line and who can use it and when.
Yeah, but even P and Z meetings, council meetings, people are saying they don't know when they are. I mean,
Could use
So
it for
the-
everything, town.
So we could start using, we don't use them for regular meetings, we only have used them for special meetings.
Yeah, I would-
That's where I think that one of the ones like are getting popular everywhere.
So put it out there for all of our regular meetings, that there's a meeting.
It'd be nice to have a,
We
be
could
nice to
also,
have a
you know,
permanent in front of town hall.
we can get
That's one of the things that we're looking to see if there's some funding out there for, because it would be nice to have a digital sign out here.
You could blast all that stuff, all town business could be on there, just going 24/7.
They aren't that expensive,
And
really.
then they're gonna take their eye off the road, and then they're gonna cause a wreck,
Well,
and
what
then
we'll
they're gonna backup.
Well, you're gonna
Domino
have,
effect.
We will bring
Messing
a
up
thing in
public
the
safety.
supplemental budget for you to consider,
the
for
thing
a
that,
sign.
you know, remember though, is that you've got one at Olson's, you've got one at the high school. I see that Ace Hardware is putting a cup in for one. We approved a cup for the one church for one. Do we want this to be an electronic billboard as you drive through town? Because that's what it's gonna start looking like. with all these things.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
the beautification
Mini
of
Vegas.
89 is no longer an issue, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that
Once you have
is a
one.
way to get, we can start using that more, and getting it out for regular meetings, but that's one way that, you know, I read the high school sign all the time, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, I didn't know, you know, there's a quilt show or whatever they're having there. So I do think, because we do have that traffic, we have 44,000 cars going through there.
Yeah, and then we had looked at that a couple of years ago, before we ended up getting the mobile one, installing something over the top of the current one, and then also PD needs their own eventually as well, because they have a different address than we do. Right?
To be wanted,
Just
the
bring
one
that
right
up.
after it.
Well, the other one would just be a static one,
Yeah.
we need something that says the police and their address, so people can find it.
flashing arrow.
Yeah.
Here, you a Hells Angel, go to the back lot.
I was gonna say, you had no problem finding it.
They didn't have any problem.
I was waving at him.
Yep.
With 5 fingers?
Yeah. Well,
That's not how they wave at you.
Okay. Any other input on that before we move on? So we've got the prosperous community changing that. What we're hearing on infrastructure is two things. What that means is, you know, how we manage our roads and local streets that we can, and how we manage our big pieces of infrastructure in the water and sewer system. Okay.
And as Terry mentioned, with some of the past year budgets, we've been really trying to total in and not increase them tremendously on the operating side. And we heard from a few of the council members on the survey, to you all specifically, that they were looking for some rather large cuts. So we do want to talk through that as we move forward and see specifically where you guys are looking. If you're looking for across the board operational, if you're looking for other things, but do keep in mind that through this process, because we have cut back the last few years, there are those inflationary aspects that are going to be challenging unless we do change how we're moving forward with certain things, as far as what services are being provided, what is important, what is most important to our community, and where we want to end up at the end of the day.
And I think we present it that way, where we really try to separate things out, which has an ongoing impact in our budget year after year, and those that are one-time, so we know we have some one-time revenue. That gives you a better sense, and when we get those supplemental across, those things that we're asking in addition to the operating budget, so we'll have two things. You know, do you want the operating budgets to stay static? Do you want to do a 1% decrease? Do you want to do a 3% decrease, knowing that any decrease is a compounded decrease, because we're already having to account for inflation. So if somebody was spending $10,000 last year and they're spending $10,000, it probably only has a value of $8,000. So if we're doing a decrease now, it's $7,000. Just, you know, put that in vague terms. So that's one of the directions we're going to ask is operating budgets. Do you want them to stay static? Do you want them to go 1%, do you wanna go 3%? I think somebody said 15%.
We're gonna need to see
That's
numbers
amazing.
first.
Yeah.
It seems a lot.
Yeah, that's what, 15, you start losing services, absolutely. It's not just how you manage it, you're going to have to cut services. And then the second thing is looking at those supplemental one-time requests, which of those are one-time money and which are long-term investments that you wanna make.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily expect an answer today.
No.
We just wanna talk through and kind of understand what, you all see from your side and where you'd like to see things change. And we are working, I think we've, you know, we sent out budget worksheets to every department, and all the leadership at the beginning of December, so they've been working on those numbers. And, we have been encouraging them to, kind of review, and we looked a lot at like what hadn't been spent in prior years, what had, where there's need for extension, additional amounts because services sometimes are out of our control with certain long-term contracts or things. You know, in PD, dispatch is a good example. We have a long-term contract, but we really don't have an alternative or a way to negotiate that. It kind of just is what it is as far as what the increases are year to year. So those kind of pieces and kind of analyzing and looking at all of those so we can explain in any of those areas why those amounts need to be a certain amount. So we do expect more discussion on that in April with you all.
I think once we get more dollar figures, you know, where we're at, and then a huge portion of that's gonna be what's happening in the very near future, economic development wise, you know, what's Circle K doing, what's Tractor Supply doing, what's the RV park doing, Embry-Riddle, you know, all these things could be boost our income, so that's gonna play in the decision. If
Gives
those
you a
are
little
going,
more breathing space if we
if
start to
those
see
are
some
going
of those.
forward for sure, so the more information we get on those going forward, the better.
I completely agree.
Or anything else that's coming down the pipe.
Brings us right to our future financial outlook.
You segued that.
So, with that, this is from an overall standpoint, inflation moderated in 2025, ended at 2.7, December to December. So it is expecting to ease a little bit going into this next year. A couple of challenges, job growth is slowing. However, in Arizona, there's a lot of continued job growth in education, healthcare, manufacturing, and technology. Problem is, those aren't areas that we really see in our town. And then personal income growth was expected to moderate, which can impact the discretionary spending, as well as higher interest rates are affecting affordable housing still. And with that, the up and down with Federal Reserve, we'll just have to kind of wait and see how that changes on that level because that'll impact the housing. And then we do have some positive things on the housing side in Chino. We've got a lot of developments that are starting, and there's actually groundbreaking and things that are moving forward along with like the townhomes agreement that recently went through. All of that's going to help provide more options here locally, and the available housing will help impact our population numbers, which are
Rooftops.
very,
Rooftops,
very
grocery stores.
significant in getting that additional economic development piece and getting those retail establishments and grocery stores. And it also helps our population for state shared revenue numbers. So construction infrastructure costs are still high, which is pressuring us on the municipal level. And population growth in general continues to be pretty strong statewide. You know, they average over 1%, close to 2%. For us, we grew only, it was less than 1% last year, less than 100 people. So that's not great, because when we're under the state average, that's where we start seeing those state shared revenues shrink. Because, you know, the amounts that the state's getting from sales tax and those kind of things can increase. But if, you know, the other communities, especially in our county, are increasing, I'm sorry, what's that? Oh,
Okay.
if the other communities, especially in our county, are increasing and we're not, that's where we see our, HERF revenues go down, our BLT. So all of those things are impactful to our budget. So we do want to grow, but in a measured,
Very deliberate, you know.
yes, deliberate way.
We can't sustain ourselves with a no-growth attitude. It just isn't viable. But we can still maintain our rural character and preserve our rural character by growing the right project, the right place. Methodical, slow, deliberate, but, a no-growth policy is sure to impact the quality of life in our services.
No,
It
it's
just
a
can't sustain itself.
horrible subject to bring up, but we need a property tax. Well, we just do.
Excuse
I mean,
me for a second.
TPT's never gonna make this town, it's never gonna happen, it's just not gonna happen. We need a
So a
property tax.
dedicated,
Have we ever done a study to where, if you did a minimal, what it would bring, because we've got more rooftops now than we've ever had, so, in other words, nobody's gonna want $500 on their property tax, right? But I mean, if there's have we done a study based on what our population is now, if we had a minimal, people might go for a
Well, they try to do the sales tax. I mean, the,
road.
Road
There's
tax.
gonna be a property tax.
when was that, Aaron? The road tax?
It was right when I started.
It was 18.
18
I will
or
have to say
19?
that we
It was
have.
like 1%, and they killed it.
Correct.
Right.
And
But a
we
lot of
killed it.
new, I mean, that was back when,
And it was on the ballot with other things.
well, population back then was a lot of more permanent, we got a lot of new residents from out of the area that are used to paying property.
And I think for the first time in the last couple of
That's
years,
why
we've
they
actually had a couple of residents say, why don't we do this?
But you don't wanna be premature, because we may have to add.
There's a lot of people that already think they're paying a property tax.
Yeah.
So
A ton.
add it in there.
They are.
But again,
It's not to the county.
they need to be educated, so.
So I think it's something that we can investigate and then decide if that's something the council wants to explore in the future.
But remember,
Cost benefit, right?
long-term, we
See what
may
they're gonna
already have to pursue, what is it, ad valorem? Is that what they call it, the ad valorem tax? For water infrastructure needs that may present itself down the road. So you don't wanna hit them twice.
Yes.
So you want, if that ever comes to attrition, you wanna do it at the right time for the right reason.
So moving on to debt in general, this is a table just showing how our debt is going to mature when all of them are paid off in 2047. So our current debt service payments are just over $2 million annually right now. And then we do have a loan dropping off. It's a tiny one that you can't really see on here. It's a really tiny bar that's here. So one will be dropping off there, and then we have another one that's dropping off in 27, 28.
What are the
So
combined payments of those that we make today? Roughly?
on WIFA in general.
No, the two
two that are
that
Just
dropping
the
off.
two, it's small. They're two of our tiniest ones. It's like,
Unfortunately.
yeah, it's like, it's rated like 400,000, which are new loans that we're looking at will.
That's what I'm saying, will that cover the, most of the new
Yeah,
ones?
so, with that, I'll go on to the next one. So this is a bigger conversation. So this is the same, the gray is the same that, was on the prior slide, just grayed so you can focus more on the new proposed ones. And we had some recent developments with the water production facility one that we're gonna talk about, as well as on the, water reclamation facility. That's the 10 million for, the expansions we need at the water reclamation facility to prevent, exceedances. And so that one is going to be a 20-year. As you can see on the water production one with the blue column. So we recently heard back, that was the one we were waiting on final loan documents on.
I'm gonna. She jumps into that makes it easier, but
Skip that subject.
yes, but, so two things, so the water reclamation facility, we know that we need to do that. Exceedances, getting into violations, it helps push out when we need to do our expansion, so, that's very tangible. The water project, we were rethinking that before this next piece of information came in, because as we're looking at where the town's growing and what's happening, we wanted to make sure that putting that line in, putting that tank in out at Old Manor, really was the best place. Because if where the tank was gonna be, there's quite a bit of line, a big portion of that was the cost for putting, the line in, but there's nobody that it serves. So do we really wanna spend $2 million on a water line that's not gonna pick up customers? You know,
$2 million on the design.
On
and
the
then
design,
10
remember.
million on the
Right, because
facility.
we have more sewer customers than we do water, correct?
Correct, yes.
About twice as
So
many.
taking that on and knowing that our rate methodology, we aren't adding the customers, so even the methodology, thank you. Mythology, it was mythology, but methodology, wasn't holding, that we could sustain that without increasing rates was a concern. But also, if we're going to spend $10 million on water and sewer, are we really picking up the most bang for the buck by doing this? And before we went there, we wanted to make sure we had that conversation. So that was part of it. And then, so we were going to revisit this with you before we went to and you took this loan, and then we got the next piece of information.
So, we did hear back from Lissa just a couple of, 2 weeks ago. And they said, you know, we gave you the schedule and it was set on a 20-year, but really because you guys are just doing design only with this one, it's a 2-year and a balloon. So, that means if we want to proceed with that water production facility design, even though they were paying for $800,000 of the $2 million, it does mean that we have, $1.2 million due after,
So
2 years.
you're suggesting not
So-
even see it through engineering, so it would be with a,
We-
pursued later?
Yeah, so we have asked them, could we do that? Our recommendation is that we withdraw it now. We take a look at, again, is this really the best place if we're going to invest this money in our water system? Is this the best place for a tank? Is this the best place for a line? Is this the best place for a new well? Or is it, because this really is redundancy and resiliency, it isn't capacity we have for capacity, do we wait and see where growth happens, and when growth comes in, growth pays for growth. So in the development agreement, they're putting in the well, they're putting in the tank, they're putting in the line.
If I remember correctly, Frank said that was just a backup, really.
It was.
And that's where the
We wouldn't be able to
resiliency
sustain a bad situation if something else went down, and that was what that was for.
So, and we've had the conversations, because that was, in talking about this, well, what if a wall goes down? So we've challenged our operational staff, if that happens, where are the key vulnerability points where that could happen? So does that mean we need to have a valve? Does that mean we need to have a pump? If we have to spend $10,000 or $35,000 for a really good, valve or a pump, that's still better than $10 million, right?
And isn't the biggest problem right now, Bright Star with the PFAS situation? I mean, they shut that well down, that's where we have a big
Our
crunch.
yes.
So, is that going forward with the state?
Yes, so PFAS is
Are we
moving
getting
forward.
anywhere on that?
It's being paid for.
Preliminary design is ongoing.
I mean, the state still, or the feds are picking up that
They're-
whole
yeah.
ticket so far?
For the construction, we'll have to pay for operations going forward, but yes, they are, which was huge, that was huge.
Terry,
And the other thing on that, and then just a second, council member, and then we also, reached out to re-engage with potential for an emergency interconnect. The other thing is, what if the well goes down? What would we do? Do we have the parts so we can fix it quickly, or could we have an emergency interconnect with Prescott that lets us open it for a day until we get it fixed? So we're going to look at those low costs to deal with that potential, and which would give us time then to make sure if we're making these big infrastructure investments, they're in the right place or they're funded by growth. Yes,
so
sir.
have you ever calculated how many new customers we would need to make that cost effective?
A lot.
So we haven't, because from that standpoint, we don't know. It depends where they're going to be connected. A lot of it links into the master plan that's being worked on currently. So is it even feasible to put lines in certain is, then how many, you know, connections could we have in these different areas? And then all of that would pull into, is this feasible? And that's where it seems a little premature to move forward with a, you know, $1.2 million investment on the town side, especially when, you know, design is only good for, you know, a certain number of years. So if we're not really proceeding with construction in that area, does that make sense at this time?
And the other portion of it, thank you, both of you for saying that, is we're seeing in the preliminary IWMP a different vision where Chino, from what we thought 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or we thought the north and other things were happening, that isn't where Chino is growing. And so they're looking at the, making those, what we are seeing organically and what the most likely will be, and it's a different picture than we used to have of where those facilities and where their growth, and so I think that we'll see recommendations shift when we get to the end of that IWMP process. And so that's the other thing, until we have that good hydrology and that good methodology, let's wait and make these investments based on data.
No, I agree, because we're already almost leveraged out anyways.
Yes.
But, the lack of water suppression for fire control could be a factor with economic development. Okay, so that's just something we need to think about, because we do need more water pressure system, because we have lost businesses because of lack of fire suppression.
Yes, with a combination of other things.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
that's
then-
one of the, that's a.
So knowing that, so if we see that in certain areas, then maybe there's a different place we wanna put the tank that achieves that.
Agreed, agreed.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's, another part of this is, as Terry was saying, having, you know, the public works team really look at, could other options be viable? If it's just, getting us through a tough time till we can get the well operational, is it just an additional tank somewhere? Is it, you know, different options that may not be as costly as a full, new well tank connection?
And going backwards a little bit, just on economic development, as far as high-tech jobs, or bringing jobs to Chino Valley. So this, I know we haven't voted on it, but the Embry-Riddle thing could potentially be a big thing for that. So I'm wondering if in a proposed development agreement, before we vote on something, if we can really pressure Embry and the Perkins to commit to a more solid timeline for phases 2, 3, and 4.
Well, we know that they already have letters of interest from like Dillon and a number of other avionics.
Correct, but if we can put pressure that,
I
It
think
sounds
those-
like
I don't wanna say certain words, but
I think those groups are ready to go, but the airfield has to be in place.
correct, but if
Is
part
that-
of phase 1 development agreement, get them to commit more to making that happen.
So on my
With a
list is
timeline.
contacting the chancellor after they spoke, and then I wrote down all the company names they talked about, so I can get with them and reach out. On
And
my side of it.
Tom was 100% for it, so really, I think
That'll
the
happen.
stumbling block is Embry-Riddle. Tom wants it tomorrow. You know, he wants it yesterday.
You want the property tax too.
Yeah, so if we can get Embry to at least, yeah, we'll commit to making this happen instead of 25 years, we want them, you know, 10, whatever.
It won't be 25 years.
Well,
I think
that,
it's
those numbers
hard-
were getting pushed around, so we can get something more concrete that we can see and that helps us make an informed decision on a vote, that would be good.
So let us talk to their attorney and not Embry-Riddle, but we'll talk to their attorney and we'll get a better feel for that we can share with you.
And just one more on this slide, just, another consideration that we had is because, as you mentioned earlier, the water and sewer have not been self-sustaining in the past. We're moving towards that with our rate increases and everything else, and we'll be doing, a new, rate study this next year because our final year of increases, happened this January. Essentially, the general fund will have to supplement if, the water or wastewater fund don't, perform as well as they need to pay those debt service payments.
So then you have to decide, do we increase rates on that 1,100, or does the other 12,000 continue to subsidize that. You know, those are, we don't wanna be in that position, we want it to be viable, but those could be realistic decisions you have to make.
And that was another reason why we were recommending withdrawing from that $2 million design loan through WIFA.
I think that's a good idea.
As a side note, are we back on board yet with the fill stations, or are we still on a?
We're back on board.
Good.
Yeah, we have, yep.
Hopefully,
we have.
all
It
the
was
ones that
one-
got the filled tanks are gonna be honest and pay what they owe on it, but I doubt that.
Yeah, it was 1 week where we had bypassed and we used the hydrant meter instead. But we are back online
You're
and
exploring a different vendor?
there's limited numbers of vendors here. We did find out through this that Abra out in Halden actually does have potable water at their fill station. So, and then if this happens again, then we'll probably refer customers there. But hopefully this is the first time that we've had this issue since we've had those fill stations. There's been little outages from time to time as the equipment was being
This was a
replaced.
hack, right?
The
Company
third
got
party
hacked 'cause it was
vendor
all
had
over the place.
an issue, ransomware issue.
And that technically turns into a federal crime because it's infrastructure.
So that,
Oh, yes, we have stand topic. Thank you, Aaron, our sergeant at arms. Appreciate that.
So you're gonna let Mark know, right?
Yeah.
So future considerations, as mentioned before, are aging infrastructure, increased repairs and maintenance, and greater costs associated with those because of inflation, the need for water and wastewater infrastructure improvements, our water reclamation facility for sure, and then depending on what our IWMP says, we'll have to see going forward with that. And then the Del Rio Springs buildings, the remediation involved there. You know, we had purchased those buildings and had gotten preliminary estimates on fixing some of the structural components and the roofs and those kind of things to keep them from deteriorating more. With that, some new things came up with lead remediation and testing and asbestos testing. And so all those different testing elements are being done because there's probably going to be a remediation component for those as well. And on a positive note, you know, we are looking at alternative funding sources. Nothing has been received yet or approved, but we are looking at every avenue there to try and alleviate the impact on the general fund. And then PFAS and PFOS treatment, again, it's an outstanding issue, but the Bright Star well is getting the improvements there for PFAS, and it'll just be that ongoing cost of the maintenance to keep that up and running with those additional costs, because everything with PFAS is quite costly.
Are they still doing testing for, well testing for that, those contaminants? Or they just did it and they're done now, or they're gonna keep testing, ongoing testing?
Yes, so we're actually loading them with the barrel this week.
But Bright Star,
Yes.
but I mean, are the other towns wells?
Not this time.
Is anybody testing to see if those are getting better or worse?
Oh, if there's like gauging testing at
Is the
intervals
state
to
doing
see.
that, or the feds doing that? I mean,
I don't think we've had to do it other than the initial, once they found it and you determined what your MCL was and how you had to proceed. I don't think there's
no
been any.
plans to test that further in the future. Because that's not a requirement, right?
Not yet.
For town water, you don't have to
No,
test.
no, they haven't established an MCL, an ongoing that you have to test for on a regular basis, no, they have not. And where we see, I think the direction is going now is looking at how it is actually the effluent, seeing PFAS, and if there's going to be treatment required on that.
They did establish.
Because they're
an MCL.
seeing that even though people are treating and taking it out on the water side, when it comes back in on the effluent, it's back in again.
I thought they did establish the 4 parts per trillion for MCL.
But not that it's, not yet the required treatment it is in place like it is
Okay.
for other things.
So in addition to that, the potential impact to revenues is high this year with Santan Valley incorporating, so that brought over 100,000 in population into the split for state shared revenues. So we saw that impact, they finally started receiving a distribution in September. And so that's going to be approximately, to us, it's around 10,000 from state shared revenues quarter. So that plus the other state shared revenues that'll be impacted, you know, we're looking at anywhere from 50,000 to 60,000 annually that'll impact us as a community. And then there again, food tax is back on the legislative docket. It has not hit committee yet. It's been assigned to a committee. There's actually two, one that would go before the voters and then just another House bill. And again, this would eliminate tax on anything that is not, or anything that can be purchased with SNAP or WIC funds is exempt from tax. And it doesn't mean you have to qualify for, but you don't have to qualify for the SNAP or WIC. It's just those food items are exempt.
BSUG's
Even though federal
not
also
giving
can't
up on
tax.
us.
An hour and a half on the phone with him.
So,
He isn't. Yeah, I've written him too, he's just not, I don't know what he's got.
so the league is tracking that carefully. Obviously, there may be times when we reach out to, you know, that Maggie reaches out to all of you, or Terry does, for letters of support or against, you know, this kind of attack on our local revenues.
So she is actually working on getting the mayor and other mayors a joint signature letter like we did last year, and also knowing those dates so that the mayor and other mayors could go down and be physically present when those important votes or conversations are happening.
So in addition to that, there's also potential reduction in state shared revenues. There's a utility TPT exemption bill that would eliminate some of the state tax on utilities, so like APS. So if that went through, it would, again, reduce our state shared revenues, because that's a large part of the pool that they receive. And then TPT sourcing, again, it's a really poor sourcing bill, really, because it just complicates things. It's looking at, okay, if you, instead of having it based on the buyer's address, so if I buy something online and text it wherever my home location is, it would be taxed to the distribution center that it's leaving. Yeah,
Well,
it's a
really
bad,
bad.
they're working on killing it, it's really bad.
It's really bad.
So,
Rural, it would shift from rural to urban.
but even in the urban areas, the
Yeah.
league was giving us some information on it today, and even in the urban areas, if they have a distribution center, they could still lose out because they would only get those sales from that distribution center. So not in their whole area. And it also complicates things for businesses tremendously, because a lot of times businesses don't know where something's shipping out of necessarily, or, you know, it's just, you know, where it's being ordered from and being delivered
Oh,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, so, anyway,
What's that?
it's
I'll
probably
introduce that.
going to go away.
I don't know who sponsored that. One. I didn't
That one
see.
has been signed to
Not
Ways and
signed
Means.
It's not assigned, okay.
Got signed to Ways and Means Committee.
But we don't know who the bill sponsor was?
I
I
don't
just heard about it this morning, but it actually, the Department of Revenue is looking more for a clear line and explanation as to what the sourcing taxes are as part of the problem. But actually has implications that are worse than the food tax in some areas. So it is a attack on rural people.
Yeah.
It's on my watch. However, it's around.
Write your legislators. They may.
I
They're
know.
gonna die,
Was there an Olson right there?
It's Olson.
'cause they're gonna keep doing it.
Sorry, I can't read it very well from here. Oh, yep, right there.
Olson.
Representative Olson.
So anyway, that one's not ideal either. So we're obviously watching all of those very carefully. both Aaron goes to the legislative call or listens in, Maggie listens to the ones for economic development and intergovs, and I listen to the finance ones, so we're staying apprised of all of these as they
And
move
then
forward.
NAMWA listens to the water ones, and then they send us there, and the mayor is on that board too, so.
On a positive note, we do have a lot of potential, things happening, in the area as far as, the Circle K, potential tractor supply. There's lots of positives that could be happening. Some of these new, the townhome developments, as well as, the expansion, over in Bright Star. So we're hoping that we see all of those happen soon, and that'll all impact construction revenues, which are one time, but they all help lead to ongoing increases. As far as our sales tax goes, we've seen a 3% increase this year of retail, or overall, but in retail itself, we're up 3% as opposed to where we were last year at this time. And then restaurant and bars up 12%, so we're seeing increases there as well, which is also great for us.
Do those increases offset our decreases?
I mean, we're overall up 3%, but no, it won't necessarily, if all these negative things happen, no.
Yeah.
As far as absorbing the impact from Santan, yeah, we should be, kind of be able to stay level as long as we continue where we're at.
So, Katie, can you, Santan's gonna take money, but where's that money go right now? That was running Santan, doesn't it go to Maricopa County?
So, the county gets certain parts of state shared revenue, but cities and towns get a different portion. So it's the share that the cities and towns get.
Wouldn't the
So-
county have to give that portion back though that they've been taking from Santan?
It's,
That makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
we've gotten a couple of different things on it, but on my side, what we've been focusing on is the actual impact. The league's given us some estimates and then some actuals on what our revenues actually decreased, during those times because of that. So that's been my focus, but we can look into that for you.
Thank you, I just wondered,
Yeah, that would make sense.
somebody's gonna make more money and lose people.
Just for information, Representative Olson is currently the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, and he is out of District 19,
Where's that?
about 2 clicks north of Nogales, I think. 19 Wayne down there, isn't it?
District 19?
Yeah,
Cochise, right, Randy?
okay.
That's Santa Cruz.
Yep, Santa Cruz Cochise there.
Population.
He wants some
400.
distribution centers down there, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Greenlee County and Cochise and Graham.
How does that gonna get people there?
There's a lot of-
Greenlee County is all 1,000 citizens.
There's a lot of distribution centers in Santa
It's a
Cruz.
small
Yep.
little county.
They can distribute.
That's why I just got
Distribution
ordered
center.
to have good. Okay.
And then on a positive, again, our PSPRS unfunded.
Yes,
Oh,
go ahead.
Oh, our PSPRS unfunded liability has improved again. It has dropped to just under 1.5 million. So that's great. We're moving in the right direction there. That was our most recent actuarial report. And so this last year, or the current year, we budgeted $250,000 to pay towards that unfunded liability as well. That's already been paid. We pay that early on in the fiscal year. So that'll help reduce that as well. And as they continue to see positive interest rate returns, we're going to see our number continue to drop there. So we just want to keep maintaining that progress. So this next year we'll be asking for that again, whittling away at that so we can get down to nothing. And we've also seen our percentages, so the amount we pay for Tier 1 officers that are in PSPRS, we used to pay over 30%, over 32% of their wages would go to PSPRS, and now we're down to under 20, so that's been a huge shift. And great, as we're becoming more and more funded, we're at 89% funded right now, which is great. And then Old Home Manor, just continued discussion and exploration of what will be happening there, of recreation, tourism, and economic development potential. And then the RV park development agreement, which will be coming to you all on a future agenda. All of that can impact things positively in our community. And with that, that's the
So we'll take a quick break. There are snacks if you need some. And when we come back, this was our we're going to get to the departmental presentations.
Perfect timing for a break, people started getting squirrely.
Yep.
shooting for now.
Hey there.
This weekend went out, no electric.
What happened to mine? Coach, I lost all, I just spent $600 for a new power transfer.
I got a guy coming tomorrow morning.
Who are you using? Dell, Tucker Rosen. I've been using this kid Trevor for $2.5 there.
I've had good luck with
So, yeah, so it is sitting, so we'll just pass it around.
Yeah. Alright, so department overviews. So these are input, like I mentioned earlier, from departments on a little overview of their area as well as where they see their needs for this upcoming year and then future needs as well. So first is Cindy with Community Services.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council and my peers. I wrote out everything that's actually on my slides because I had a middle of the night thought that I had to expand on, and I'm either a go big or go home, so you got it all. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So, as we look at community services, I really want to focus not only on where we are today, but on what the data tells us about the community engagement and future needs, which I think we kind of saw a little bit from the community survey, even though it was only 144. It really showed where some of the strengths we as a town have. While Chino Valley is not necessarily experiencing a significant population growth, we are seeing something equally important, and that's our programs, events, and facilities are being used more than ever. Participation continues to increase across departments, which speaks to the quality and relevance of the services we provide. At the same time, we must carefully balance this growth in participation, participation, don't have my glasses today, with a relatively stagnant economy and increasingly limited funding sources. So with the Senior Center and Meals on Wheels, the long-term need remains expanded programming and facilities. We are outgrowing pretty much every space that we do have at this time. By the end of the fiscal year 25-26, we will serve over 40,000 congregate and home delivered meals, underscoring how critical this service is for older adults in our community. In addition to nutrition services, our programming continues to evolve. Our new Compass to Lifelong Learning, which I have copies for everyone if you want it when we're done, program meets twice a month and draws approximately 20 or more participants per session, reflecting strong interest in educational and enrichment opportunities for older adults. Budget pressures remain significant, particularly with rising food costs and declining federal funding, which means long-term sustainability will continue to depend on grants, tax credits, and strategic funding decisions. For aquatics, the focus is on facility upkeep and expanded use. Aquatics remains one of the most visible and heavily used services, serving approximately 17,000 visitors this past season. 17,000 visitors. Remember, we were open for 10 weeks. Along with more than 400 swim lesson participants. While the program tries to operate in a semi-sustainable model, rising operational costs, especially increases in minimum wage, continue to impact the budget. Maintaining safety, affordability, and quality programming will require thoughtful long-term planning. Recreation, the need centers on capital improvements to Community Center Park, Appaloosa Meadows, Center Street Park, and Old Home Manor. Katie, you can go ahead to the next slide too. They kind of all blend together. Attendance at recreation events continues to climb with an estimated over 10,000 participants enjoying our recreation programs and events in this past year alone. As these spaces grow more popular, our budget strategy will remain focused on grants, community partnerships, and sponsorships to supplement town resources and reduce reliance on the general fund. Currently, our staff is working on a sponsorship program to go out to businesses and others to sponsor things like our food truck festival, our territorial days, et cetera, to try and alleviate some of that, the burden that we have. The library remains one of our strongest indicators of increased community engagement. In 2025, the library hosted 425 events with more than 9,500 attendees, showing continued growth over the previous year. We estimate more than 70,000 people came through the library's front doors, including residents using computers, Wi-Fi, printers, and the space is a safe, climate-controlled environment. The library issued 842 new library cards. Currently, the library has 4,508 active card holders. Circulation remains strong with over 105 items checked out or renewed from a physical collection of more than 57,000 items. So that doesn't include your digital items such as your books on your Nook, your Kindle, your computer, etc. Children's programming continues to be a standout success. The summer reading program enrolled 493 participants, which is an increase of about 100 from last year. Participants logged over 113,000 minutes of reading, with staff estimating total reading time likely exceeded 366,000 minutes when accounting for the unreturned logs. More than 1,500 take-home craft kits were distributed, and all of that was done in 7 weeks' time. And the library partnered with Chino Valley Unified School District, Head Start, and local schools through tours, story times, and library literacy events. The library also functions as a true community hub with 200 public community room reservations, over 100 additional facility rentals, and multiple recurring weekly users ranging from small clubs to groups of more than 40 participants. So as you can see, the data tells a consistent story across community services. While our population may be stable, participation is not. Residents are showing up, engaging, and relying on these services more than ever. The challenge before us is meeting this growing demand responsibly, finding the balance between increased participation, operational sustainability, and limited economic growth. Our focus moving forward will be on strategic investment, partnerships, and long-term planning to ensure these services remain strong, accessible, and sustainable for the Chino Valley community. With that, we are not asking for any large ticket anything for the next several years besides capital improvement within some of the areas that we mentioned. Like the things that Proud has already focused on and suggested. And that's it. If anyone has any questions.
But you're running out of space.
We are running out of space, absolutely. Those of you that served both Thanksgiving and Christmas, you saw how much the senior center is running out of space.
And those of you that served hot dogs at the events, know how many people are showing up for those events, right? We couldn't keep up.
So here's my only question. So I was looking, tomorrow's fee schedule comes up for a vote. Did we go over the pool fees when was there any increase in pool fee?
There was.
There was?
Very, very small.
Not for the fee schedule that you're approving.
That was on the last one.
No, there isn't one.
No.
But
There wasn't
that just seemed really low.
It is pretty low. It was structured that way for a few things.
I mean, I know it needs to be affordability for the demographics we have, but it just really low. I mean,
So,
those can't
to
go up
give
at
you
all?
an example, Prescott Valley, and Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, they do not charge for pool entries. YMCA is about the same price as we are. But here's an interesting fact. So even though Prescott Valley does not charge entrance fees, and we do, we get a significant number of people from Prescott Valley to come to our facility. So I don't think,
I'm just wondering if those could be revisited in the future to see if we can.
was it about a?
Yeah, the pool's a big
it was just
expense
right
for the town.
before This last fee schedule.
Yeah,
but there's
It
not
was
any
actually-
recreation for kids besides.
No, I'm
the
not
pool.
saying we don't need it. I'm not
Have a problem with
suggesting,
that.
I'm at all suggesting get rid of it. I know it's never gonna run in the black, but just try to get, we can't keep going.
So in the next fee
to the negative.
schedule, we can put some options out for council to consider. How's that? Not this one, but the one after.
And
Now we're
Robert,
doing this on an annual basis.
you could volunteer to be a lifeguard at no salary. That'll say.
That's probably one of the things that's hurting us the most. is
Yeah, well,
the
minimum
yearly
wages just went up.
Minimum wage
and-
increase.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I mean, we can't keep sliding.
Agreed.
Good point out there, these
Okay.
little, students.
Lose beat.
His man.
Next we'll go to development services, Lori and Will. Who's gonna take this?
So that's our org chart, you guys know, what we do. This last year, you funded a GIS position, and the last 4 months, he's been very busy working with us on a current case that we have, developing maps and things. I know you're shocked. So we haven't had a chance to get him to, Public Works and PD, because that was our promise in the first year, was to get him shared with them, because they have some things that they need to have done. But that is, once we get through with this airfield, you guys, I promise, it's coming.
Got your hands full, it's fine.
So we're looking at, this next year, like Laura always says, get the right person in the right seat on the bus. And currently, Will spends a lot of time managing code enforcement, because they are we don't have a manager. We have the capacity for the manager, but we have 2 people that independently are always in Will's office. It is not an efficient use of his time. As it is, we spend a lot of time weekends and nights texting each other about lots of things that are going on that we didn't have a chance to talk to each other about during the day, because he's dealing with code enforcement. So our goal is to upgrade one of the current positions so that one of them supervises the other one, and then we have the supervisor a couple times a week talks to Will, as opposed to multiple times, both of them every single day. So that is our goal. We start with 10, we end with 10. We're not asking for a new position, we're just asking to upgrade one, so that frees Will so that he has time to do more of his work at work instead of at home. We always ask for stuff to implement the general plan. That's part of what we do. That's why we do a general plan. It lists a bunch of things we need to do. We got the zoning code update approved in terms of the funding. We're working on that right now. But there's some other things that need to happen, like the HMUs, those purple areas. We need to have a footprint for what does that look like. When we have developments that come in those areas, we don't have anything to share with them about what it looks like there. So what they're doing is using the same zoning and doing the same stuff that they're currently doing, so you're not gonna see any change until we get an HMU footprint of some kind to help us shape what those little areas look like, those little centers. So we'll ask for it, like we've done the last couple of years. We understand the budget's tight. We understand that we have to wait a lot. But that's something that, you just need to keep in the back of your mind.
And I'd like to connect that, the importance, I think, of that conversation, not only in developing and moving ahead with the general plan, but also I think as we have the economic development conversation, picking one of those HMUs that you think could have the biggest potential economic impact, that's the one we pick, that's the one we study, that's the one we develop a plan for, so that, Maggie can have some direction, that development services can have direction, and we can invest in one we think could be the most successful and have the most impact. So that's what we'd like to encourage in considering that item when we bring it to you later.
Thanks. In future years, is this our future year? This is our future year. So we're doing some succession planning. In that model that we're proposing 27, 28 is still 10 employees. The assistant director moves to the director. The assistant director's position is downgraded to a principal planner, so we can fill that position and then have a career ladder for the other two planners to figure out who moves where when.
So what's important, I think, in their plan is two things. They talked about the efficient use of people at the right levels. So if we move one of those positions to, like a senior code enforcement, it's kind of the model we use in utilities or in streets. We have, you know, a senior operator and an operator, so they can manage their crews through the week, and it doesn't have to go, everything doesn't have to go to the manager. So that's good on a day-to-day, but then we would increase some costs by increasing that in 1 year, but the year after, when our director has her retirement and goes on to the next chapter of her life, then we'll downgrade, so we'll be paying more for 1 year, but we'll make that back up the next year when we take that position away. So we're gonna ask for a little more this year, to potentially do that in this coming fiscal year, and then the year after, we'll balance it back out. We'll only need that increase because then we're gonna be losing the assistant director position and we'll reallocate those funds. So it's a temporary increase on the personnel, not in people, just in amounts. It'll put us in a better operational standpoint, and it helps with the succession planning.
Are you saying that, is this your official way of saying you won't be here in 27, 28?
I will be here in some months in 27, 28.
But not.
What if you decide not to?
Huh?
What if you decide not to?
That's not gonna happen. I will turn 70, and it's time for this old lady to move on.
No, but things change.
Here's the thing.
Is that 28, Lori? 'Cause I'll be
She's already
retiring,
been here
you can come
longer
on
than
the
we thought we
council.
were.
She has.
I-
She's got a goal.
Here's the thing, I have a responsibility to step back. I've been mentoring Will. It's the next generation, they need to take over.
And you had check boxes that you wanted
I
to do
did.
before that
And the
happened.
zoning
we
code has to be
appreciate-
done, so I'm not leaving till the zoning code's done. Got the building codes updated and in the town code. Got the general plan done, these are the pieces that need to be in place, so Will takes over a complete department that runs well and has all the pieces that he needs.
We could name a runway after you for a few extra months.
I know we're not getting into the budget,
Yes.
but just hypothetically, so let's just say the council should adopt her recommendation
Yeah.
about a quasi supervisor for the code enforcement. What is the current scale and what are we looking at going to?
Yeah, what general impact do you think that would have?
Well, typically, a supervisor is 2 steps above the person below them, so 2 to 3 steps.
Okay.
So if, I can tell you what code
Well,
enforcement.
I mean, that's fine, it's
Okay.
just 2 steps.
That's
is fine.
typically it.
And
But this person wouldn't be at the maximum, they'd be
right,
somewhere.
no. And then, let's just say the council should adopt the whole future plan as well.
And then we'll change it.
As I understand it, what you're saying is, there would be an increased impact short term, but it will long term not be an increased impact because the assistant director position would go from, well, you know, down a position or 2.
Yes.
Okay, I understand, thank you.
Any other comments before we move on? Okay. So, finance, as you all know, we oversee the annual budget, the plan for the year, and handle all the state reporting requirements with that, as well as our financial reporting, so our ACFR and PAFR, which is last year we had done the PAFR, so the popular annual financial report for the first time. It's the condensed version, and we had gotten the GFOA award for that. This year we've submitted that as well for fiscal year 24-25. Following our audit is when we can submit those, as well as our sales tax monitoring. So we look at that on a regular basis to make sure things are coming in where they should, and we do those additional contracts, as you all know, with the external TPT compliance help through Cindy Aldridge. We actually have tax audits being done now, which is something that we haven't done in our community for years, and that can help bring in revenues that are owed to the town that we just aren't able to collect or we don't know about. And then our grant administration and reporting, that's in conjunction with different departments. So in certain areas, they need certain reports from finance or other things, and we do the overall tracking for our audit purposes. And then purchasing review, so all of purchases that are made, we make sure that policies are followed and that staff know what those policies are, as well as coordinating the external audit, which is a requirement of the state. And then our bank reconciliations, like balancing your checkbook, AP, AR, payroll, and utility billing. So with that, I'm not requesting anything in my area for this upcoming year. We just recently redid the audit RFP, which came before you all for the 5-year term, and not requesting any staffing or anything like that for the next few years. Eventually, it's something that we'll have to look at, but it's not feasible right now because of our location, for one. Average-wise, when you look at where we're at staffing-wise compared to other finance areas for size, we're about 2 to 3 under where municipalities our size usually are. But I've got a very efficient team that runs really well together. So right now, we're good. Eventually, that might be something as the town continues to grow that we'll need to address. But as of right now, we're just continuing to operate, and that's it.
On that, as you know, we talk about from time to time, obviously we've got awards. The auditors talked about it. We have been working, finance and the department have been working on being consistent and actually following our procurement code, following, state procurement law, doing all the things that we need to do, and, when we need to bid and get 3 bids and certified, and it is what we need to do to be fiscally responsible, but it's time intensive. We get pushback sometimes because they know it takes more time to do those things, but we should have been doing them all along. But in doing that and being compliant and making sure we're being fiscally responsible, it takes more time to do those things. And it does put more burden on the finance team. They've done a lot of training, they did a lot of outreach, they did a lot of putting SOPs in place, and with lots of things between both HR, I would say, and how we manage those things. So it's a really good thing, but it does take more time to do things right as anywhere else, and so eventually that will catch up with us.
Yeah, and one other positive is in December we did get the award back for our current budget year books. So we did get the GFOA award for Distinguished Budget Award, and we actually got 2 special recognitions this year, which is the first for the town. So we got a special recognition for our capital plan as well as our strategic goals and priorities. So that's the hard work of every area as far as getting those. So.
Nice.
All right, so HR, there's 7 primary areas of responsibility in HR, which are listed on the right-hand side that you've seen. But our overarching mission is to help build a positive work culture, make sure employees are treated fairly, ensure legal compliance, and act as the organization support and liaison between the employees in the town. The HR plays a critical role in driving business success by helping to shape organizational culture, attracting top talent, and ensuring employees are engaged and productive, which ultimately leads to low turnover, which means save dollars. Our focus is on the current council's strategic priority of effective government, which is the innovative and high-performing organization box that we saw. And that comes down to recruiting and retaining quality staff, and not just any staff. And that's why we're having all these successes in different departments, and you're seeing such quality work come out of departments, because we're really focusing on what we have to do to recruit and retain quality staff. So HR is not requesting anything at the moment either, but I wanted to go over our priorities this coming fiscal year, and that's to stabilize low turnover, performance management, and compensation and classification studies. We need to continue to maintain a low turnover, which is under 12 at the moment, which again equates to money saved.
What's that mean under 12?
What's that?
What's that mean under 12?
Our turnover rate, the number of employees that we have versus the people that leave, that's the percentage that's
Oh,
left.
so 12%,
Mhm,
okay. I
under
thought you said
12%.
12.
And if you keep your turnover low, it saves the money,
Okay.
the town money. And we've actually had a few employees leave through retirement. One was here, has been here for, what, Kurt has been here for 25 years. We have Joe,
26.
Joe Grossi just left, and he left with 20 years. So that's part of the turnover rate too, so we have people leaving that are happy. But it gives us an opportunity. So stabilizing low turnover, this can be done, so like I said, we need to maintain that. And this can be done through retention programs that support our low turnover percentage through competitive compensation, valued benefits, and organizational structure that is based on trust, autonomy, and intrinsic motivation, which we have right now. Performance management, we need to continue to improve our performance management program, which will enhance communication, align town and individual goals, set clear expectations, track and measure progress, identify development needs, improve decision-making, and improve culture and drive organizational success, all in easy and comprehensive format. When it comes to compensation and classification studies, we do one every year informally without fail. And every typically 4 to 5 years we'll do a formal one. We do need to conduct, I've already started the informal study, but we need to conduct some type of compensation and classification study that will support the goal of attracting and retaining talent like we're doing right now in the local labor market that reflects real work competition here and today and is relevant to our region. So the future of HR, the future of public sector HR, it's expected to look quite different from today. And it will be driven by technology, workforce expectations, and evolving government priorities. In a conservative public sector organization like ours, we still need to evolve, but changes will likely be more incremental and compliance-driven with a strong emphasis on stability, risk management, and adherence to regulations. Areas that we're gonna pay attention to is workforce planning. The shift is moving from just solely managing people to designing a workforce. And a fine example of that is what Lori just went over. So that's workforce, designing the workforce. Technology enhancements. We need to continue to integrate HRIS upgrades for increased automation and efficiency. If we can't get FTEs, full-time equivalencies, we need the automation to do what we need to do with less people. Flexible work models. This is going to be an inevitable demand by the future staff. And we need to evaluate this type of setup for select roles with, of course, strict security and compliance protocols in place, and that's where IT comes into place. Employment development. Training will shift from solely mandatory training focused on regulations and ethics to expanded learning opportunities that are still formal and policy driven. A great example of this type of focus can be seen in the police department. They're always trying to look outside the box and see how their training will create succession plans so we can retain staff. And the employee experience, this is big with Terry and all of the department heads. We have to continue focusing on improving communication and engagement for our staff and maintain stability for the staff. So that's HR.
I appreciate you spelling learning correct.
Well,
Why, did you read it out in the paper otherwise?
Yeah, I totally missed
There's a school, you know, a learning school
Yeah.
that spells it with leering.
oh,
Quality Learning Center.
oh, that's funny.
Yes.
Terry, can you take?
Yeah.
So Larry and I had submitted for an agenda item, and I know we got a,
Oh, yes, yes, thank you.
so I just wanted to know if that's gonna get addressed during the budget
Yes.
problem, or we're gonna have an agenda item, or
Thank you for reminding us of it. Yes, so one of the things you had done and we had already engaged on is, as with all things, when something new comes up and we find we don't have a good town policy, or it's been done different ways, or it differs by one town manager or one council, we try to put a policy in place that's consistent and makes sense within the organization. So one of those that came up is, what is our formalized policy on how we handle steps, how we handle COLA increases, how do we handle out of range? And so Laura, Katie, and I have met. We're putting some, balancing some different things, seeing what we think is best in this application here, and then we're going to be reporting back to you on what our recommendations are for that, and formalizing, putting something formal in place, and we'll let you know when we talk about COLAs and merits, how we're going to do that and formalize our policy in the future.
Perfect.
So thank you for asking that question.
Can I ask you a question that's somewhat related to that? What about, because of recent events, code of conduct?
That was also submitted.
Yes,
Okay.
that
Was
is
it? You
submitted,
guys did?
and that is going to
Okay,
be,
okay.
that's going to be addressed with our attorney and you first about what we can do, and then we'll go forward.
Something similar to that. We utilize Lexipol for our policies and stuff, which is amazing because it updates all the legislative changes and stuff and makes it super simple for us to get in there to tailor it to where legally for the state it matches and it meets the criteria that we need, and then we can tweak things around to kind of meet our personal standards, but it's still overarching with legislative and everything like that. So I don't know if there's a system that would make it easier for you guys that would have, like Lexipol would have it all there, like all the meat and potatoes for every policy, and you can tweak it as needed, but it still follows that legislative guideline, and it's pretty inexpensive and it saves a lot of time.
There are some good tools for that, and I think it depends if you're looking at HR for this particular one, about how there's so many different philosophies that different towns and cities use. Some have formal step processes, it's all step. Some it's COLA, and then they have a policy if you reach the maximum that you don't get anything, maybe you just get a lump sum, and that's based on what the budget is each year, and it's part of the budget process that the council would adopt. So we're looking at all of those and where we're at to see what we think would make the most fiscal sense for us, and then we'll make those
And
recommendations.
I think you were referring to code of conduct.
Oh, you're talking about code of
I was
conduct.
wondering, so code of conduct wise would fit into that Lexipol thing. I don't know if there's something, and I don't know if I can look into it too, through Lexipol that gives you options, cause like, there's several for like use of force reporting. So you can pick what, it matches all the legislative changes and laws, but you as a town can select which one fits with your role, but it still mirrors. So
And
I-
there is a legal distinction about the level of standard and ethical conduct that a police officer needs to have in a normal employee, because obviously, if you have somebody that, like, you know, just simply like we've talked about before and we dealt with, you know, if somebody is lying, then they're never gonna be able to go in court and be a witness. And so that their ability to do their job. So there is a different standard because of that, and the power that they have, and they're carrying a gun and enforcing things. And that was one of the conversations with our attorney, you know, there's certain things where you can enforce it legally, and where there's certain things where it's a very gray area, and do we want to take on that liability potentially? So those are conversations we'll have. And that will be a separate agenda.
Well, by you, Spence.
So just a quick mention on the function. I think you guys pretty much know what we manage, you know, the computers, network servers, software and application, email, website, stuff like that. But one of the things I did want to make mention of is that because IT is basically making inroads into pretty much everything known to man, there is definitely a large convergence of different things that start to fall within our plate, within our subject. I mean, we have newer devices that keep getting added to the IT infrastructure, you know, audio, visual, streaming technology, the video surveillance, door access control, irrigation, HVAC, wastewater, water. So more and more things that we utilize around the town are falling within the IT scope of responsibility. And it puts a larger load on the infrastructure that we use and requires greater expansion into those areas. To accommodate that technology that we are deploying throughout the town. It's a wonderful thing because, I mean, we can definitely try to automate, try to reduce the staff requirements, but we definitely have to be able to accommodate that with the expansion of the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure. But that being said, I will say that that's not the area where we are going to be focusing so much this next year. So let's see. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so this next year we are going to be focusing heavily on our security posture. This is one of those things that I would say is, you know, we're not always excited about focusing on it, but it is definitely a need we have to focus on. Because, you know, it doesn't turn into these tangible things. You go, oh yeah, look at this, we're doing this for the town. Because people don't see it. It's usually an internal thing, and they're usually grumbling about the fact that they have to sign into that now, and they have to authenticate here and do all this stuff. But it's kind of one of those necessary evils that we do have to implement. And because it's just the cybercrime is just becoming exponentially harder and harder to deal with. And I think all of you guys know what has been going on, the news, you keep hearing it, so it's continuing to be a thing that we have to adapt ourselves to accommodate. And we see this with the rise of AI. And as soon as AI came out, they're already talking about the fact that cyber criminals using AI to start targeting attacks against you, which is very difficult to fight against because you got a robot doing this and it doesn't sleep, it just keeps going, you know. So we have to adapt, we have to add new technology within this arena to try to combat that. So it's AI against AI essentially in a lot of things. So that is going to be an area we're going to be focusing on is trying to implement security technologies that can help defend against these new attacks that keep coming out. And that's not only something that just in our mental state we're saying, yeah, we must do this. We are getting a lot of push from the auditing that we're getting from from the insurance, the Berkeley risk. We're getting a lot of that where they come through an audit and they'll say, you now have to have this. You now have to have this. And you have to check those boxes, otherwise they give you findings, and then you have to go back and go, okay, well, you know, we're fulfilling that need now by this or this. So these are imperative. And the security audit that we did with finance was another area. Okay, we need this, this, and this. We want to show, you know, you got to show proof that you have this and this and this. So these are areas that are really imperative that we really are going to have to put a lot of focus on to try to address that. So I will say that probably we're going to be putting more focus there and probably less towards the hardware side of things, which is probably a good thing because RAM costs are through the ceiling right now because of AI. But also, as they were talking about in HR, workflow automation, we're looking at trying to do some things maybe with the new SharePoint platform we have. Hopefully we can implement some workflow automation in hopes to reduce some of the staff load. And then on-premise server migrations are going to be necessary this year. Microsoft is retiring some of their servers, and a lot of our server platforms need to be moved forward, so we're going to have to focus on that this next year as well. It's going to be a bigger push. So just the last slide for future things. I think that we're going to continue to have to put a lot of focus on the security and compliance enhancements. I don't think that's going away, and I think that's going to be an area we got to continue to adapt. Secondly, I think implementation of AI is going to be one of those things that's just an expectation. So I don't think, you know, it's not like something you can go bury your head in the sand. AI, residents eventually are going to go, well, how come we can't do this? We want this. We want that. And so I think that probably where we're going to see that greatly implemented is things in chatbots, document processing, workflows. We're going to probably see that AI technology used in those areas. That's where I could see it probably most utilized in the areas of government. So you'll probably see that if we start pushing down the AI side, my guess is that's the area we'll see that implemented the most often for municipalities. And then also, we're going to be working on ongoing town network infrastructure and redundancy implementation, trying to get you know, alternate methods to connect to the internet, things like that for the police's EOC operations, just trying to give us some redundancy to our data centers and the business critical systems of the town. So that's the direction we're going. So you will probably see, I remain uncertain whether or not we're gonna have an increase in IT. I gotta see where the hardware, if the drop in hardware is gonna compensate for the increase in the services that we're gonna need for security. So we're gonna be seeing if that shift plays out. It may be some minor increases, but we're just gonna have to, I think, see when I get a little further into the budget process this year. So that's all I have.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. This is my first time doing this presentation, so I was a little uncertain of what to expect. But as you know, the magistrate court functions to hear misdemeanor offenses occur in the jurisdiction. We also issue orders of protection, and so within all of that and being sort of the separate branch of government, we do our best to also sort of follow many of the things that the town has previously identified as being effective government, collaborating, engaging. In the time that I've been here, I've made a point of talking with Chief McIntyre. I've relied heavily on Laura and Katie and Terry, and so I want to thank them publicly for the support they've provided me as the new magistrate. So collaborating engagement, I feel really good about in terms of the way I've been able to hopefully effectively assume leadership for our court locally. I believe in transparency for our court as well as innovation and being a high-performing department. That being said, the court sort of grinds through things. I mean, there's nothing new and sexy about what's happening over there, other than combating things like AI. You know, I had a gentleman who was asking questions about something he'd submitted, and he said, "I'm not really sure what you're asking me because ChatGPT wrote my motion." I was like, "All right, well, there we go. Let's review that." So the court is sometimes courts are not known to be innovative as much as we react to things, and so that's sort of the posture that we're in. And so I think my priorities for fiscal year 26-27 are to fill. We actually have an open part-time position right now, and it's become evident that we need to fill that. We've already got that budget for this fiscal year. I think that we've seen increased numbers, and I don't want to tell you everything I'm presenting to you tomorrow evening, so I don't want to tell you everything I have to say today, but there are some numbers there that suggest that filling the part-time vacancy that we currently have, and it's already been funded, may be an important continued need for the future if our numbers continue. My goal is to implement several security improvements. We had a security assessment in August of 2025, and there were several sort of deficiencies that were identified by the security manager who came to us from the Arizona Supreme Court. And we're working, some of those are changes in policies, some of them are minor that don't impact budget, some of them are bigger budget improvements. But most of those things that I want to accomplish within the next year are things that we already have funding for, so it's not going to impact next fiscal year. Again, increased use in technology. I think this is a difference in my philosophy versus my predecessors. We have some technology available that we were not utilizing to its potential. And so we've already implemented some changes to improve that. One of the things that I've seen anecdotally is that it improves the number of people that are actually able to appear in court. Last week we had 6 people appearing in person. We had 3 people that had requested to appear remotely, and this is for an arraignment, which is basically a 5-minute hearing. And one of them was from Peach Springs, another was in Mesa, and another was in southern Arizona. And all of them were able to appear, and probably wouldn't have appeared if that remote appearance was not available to them. And so that saves not only their travel time off from work. Ironically, 2 of the 3 were charged with driving on suspended license, so I don't want them driving to court anyway. And
We just arrested them. Did you get
and then job security, chief. And so again, I think it promotes that sort of like we want to be accessible, and our goal is to help you take care of business. So if you can be here, that's a good thing. So I think we can improve some technology there, but technology costs money. So one of the other things recently, the Administrative Office of Courts has banned our ability to use USBs. So we can't have, and I haven't seen it happen very often here, but we couldn't have a law enforcement officer or a pro per litigant come in with evidence on a USB drive and plug it into a court computer. So we're trying to figure out if that means having a separate sandbox computer that's isolated that people can plug into, or if we can do a SharePoint where people are uploading. Superior Court is currently using digital evidence. I know from talking with Donna McQuality, the county clerk, that it's expensive, surprise, surprise, to have digital evidence. So it kind of moves from one thing to the other. And what we have now is the ban that's implemented. No one's implementing us or forcing us to do anything else, but I think it's on the horizon. So it's kind of something we're keeping an eye on. One of the things when I assumed this position, there were 2 lawyers who were accepting court-appointed work for indigent defendants. And one of those gentlemen had a pretty terrible personal accident and had to close his practice, at least temporarily. Word is he's improving and maybe coming back. But I reached out to several people to say, what's our contract look like with our defense attorneys? And come to find out there is no contract with those defense attorneys. So what I would like to do is formalize the relationship that we have with court-appointed counsel. I think there's a need to explore how much those lawyers are being compensated for the work that they're providing. I sort of informally had my court administrator reach out to other communities in the county, and I think we're on the low end of what we pay those lawyers. And I think it's important to have quality attorneys appearing in court, and to do that, we need to make it worth their while to continue to come out here. Thankfully, I was able to replace the one lawyer who was no longer able to come with a second. He's doing a fine job, off to a good start, and a third person has actually expressed interest in accepting court-appointed work out here too. So I think as long as we have some quality lawyers willing to work in the community, I would like to have them. And that piece is also on my future outlook. Currently, Chief Justice Timmer of the Arizona Supreme Court has put together a task force that is looking at how Arizona manages court-appointed counsel. Like, when do people actually get court-appointed lawyers? And my standard spiel is that if you always have the right to an attorney, constitutionally you have the right to attorney of your choice. If you can't afford to hire an attorney, one may be appointed to represent you if you qualify financially and are incarcerated, or qualify financially and are facing jail time as a consequence of a conviction. What's interesting is the way that Arizona has managed this over decades and decades, in the 30 years that I've been practicing law, is that court-appointed counsel triggers when the prosecutor says, oh, by the way, we really, really want to ask for jail time. Because statutorily, any misdemeanor has the possibility as jail time as a maximum, and therefore with that loss of civil liberty could and should qualify for court-appointed counsel. So I'm not quite sure where this task force is going to go. I've been interviewed by people from the company that have been retained by the state Supreme Court to interview us about what our courts are doing and what that practice looks like. But we'll see what's on the horizon for that. But there could be an increased need for court-appointed counsel at municipal court level for misdemeanors based on what I'm seeing, based on the kinds of questions they're asking. So I think if there's community growth, that's probably going to impact if there's more law enforcement and presence on things like speeding and code enforcement, that ends up in the courts. So our numbers may go up based upon community growth and increases in enforcement. And again, I feel like we're always going to be responding to security. The bad guys get better and better, whether it's how to get into the building or how to get into your server. So I feel like we're always going to be sort of evolving in that regard, making sure that we are technologically relevant and accessible. And that's one of the things that I think, in some ways, smartphones have been actually better, because the number of people that can send us an email with a copy of their insurance card, that's great. People putting things on a flash drive, that was technologically inaccessible. So I feel like in some ways our technology is moving us forward. And so we're creating a more accessible process. And yeah, that's it. So any questions? Appreciate it. And you'll hear from me more tomorrow.
Oh, the PD. that's just a huge list of things that we do. You're all pretty much aware of what we do, but protect life and property, constitutional rights, enforce state and local laws, respond to emergencies, non-emergency calls for service, patrol neighborhoods, businesses, and roadways, investigate crimes, conduct traffic enforcement and crash investigations, promote roadway safety, DUI enforcement, collect and manage physical and digital evidence, support prosecutions through thorough investigations, engage in community policing and crime prevention programs, work with schools, residents, and partnering agencies, provide records, administrative, and civilian support services, provide rapid response during critical incidents such as active threats and large-scale emergencies, patrolling neighborhoods, businesses, and schools to deter criminal activity through proactive presence and enforcement, maintain state-mandated certification and continuous professional training, ensure compliance with changing laws and best practices which reduce municipal liability through policy training and documentation, and build trust through proactive community engagement. You can go to the next slide.
That's it?
I had about, yeah, they said 3 slides, so I had to cut it down to 1. So I had 37. So, you know, we do a lot of things that are, the public knows about, but a lot of stuff behind the scenes too. Just currently, our men and women that we have working now are doing an excellent job. We have a good group of folks. You know, I've said before, we've changed our tactics with hiring. We're being more stringent with the people that we hire. I would rather be down a couple bodies than hire somebody that's not going to be, you know, an efficient or effective use of manpower hours or beneficial for our community. So some of the short-term priorities that we have for this next year, professional standards and achieve A-Leap accreditation. So we want to enhance our training. That reduces liability to the town, obviously, through A-Leap accreditation that we're in the process of gaining. That brings transparency and a lot of good things as far as making sure that our standards are upheld through the state, and that we're more relevant in certain aspects. Increased focus on proactive and community-oriented policing, which we constantly try to find ways to communicate better with our public, to be out there in the public, to bridge that gap between law enforcement and the community, especially nowadays since things have gone awry. We need to kind of step up our game with keeping our support and showing the citizens that we're there for them and maintaining their support and that good relationship that we do have with them. Invest in officer wellness, advanced training and leadership development, maintaining and expanding traffic safety enforcement and collaboration, and replace old and antiquated equipment and increase operational capabilities through new tools, technology, and gear. I can tell you, we continually, and I've said this to you guys before, we continually look at what we have and what we can do to make ourselves more efficient and effective. A lot of our tools, like that we've replaced most recently, the evidence tracking systems that we did have before, they're totally old. They weren't supported anymore. We were a hiccup away from having a complete loss of evidence tracking.
That guy was gone, man.
Yeah. Spencer was like, "Do something now," and I'm like, "We still got 3 months. We can save money." We finally got a system in place. So we're looking at things that we have that are old and antiquated and trying to replace those out and to find other things that we can utilize to make us more efficient, to take some workload off some people so it's more documented internally, digitally, so we're not paper copying stuff and doing things by hand, recreating the wheel, so to speak. So we're continually looking at that, and then with staffing and everything that we're looking at community needs. Again, it's not just a want, it's a necessity. If we need, you know, for instance, if somebody says traffic enforcement, you guys need to do more traffic enforcement. Our folks are doing a pretty good job. You guys see the monthly statistics that come up, how much we are doing, but yet we still get those complaints for speeders and all that kind of stuff. So we look at what's needed based on public, but we're also looking 5 years ahead. Because I'm a big advocate for what's 5 years from now. I don't want to be playing catch up in the long run. If we're going to be hiring people 5 years from now, why not hire a couple here and there in between, so that we're not fighting for other agencies for quality candidates that are, you know, we should be getting before they do. With that being said, being fiscally responsible, we are, you know, moving towards the future as far as accreditation and compliance, sustaining A-Leap accreditation to reduce the risk of and limit liability and uphold professional standards. Strategic and predictive planning, like I said, leveraging data, research and anticipating population growth, crime trends, and community service needs. Future-focused staffing, plan smart growth for sworn and non-sworn personnel to maintain service levels, reduce overtime, and prevent burnout. I can tell you that that's that's a huge focus of ours right now, is that future focused staffing. With command staff and I basically busting out the books and figuring out who's tasked with what. We have people like an admin lieutenant that's also an accreditation manager, which is another full-time position in and of itself for professional standards and accreditation. Yet he's doing everything, his job and this. We got records folks that are doing multiple different things that would necessarily fall under a couple different employees, not just one. And what's that?
Other duties as assigned.
Exactly. And we hammer on that other duties as assigned stuff. So, you know, hey, you got these 30 things, but there's another 30 things you need to do. And everybody's doing a great job. So don't get me wrong, they're burning the candle at both ends. We're getting it done. If it needs to get done, somebody's stepping up and getting it done. It's usually like either a paper, rock, scissors, or who's not doing anything today. That's your job. So we're making it work, but looking to the future, is that efficient use of time? Is that effective? Are we burning out our employees, or should we spread the wealth? So we're looking into that. Training and leadership development has been huge over the last year with our training budget. We focused on getting caught up, so to speak. We were far behind in training, especially with high liability items. Driving track, we didn't have an instructor for a couple of years. We now have an instructor in-house now, so we're going to start in this calendar year, start pushing people through driving track stuff. Huge liability for the town if we don't. Use of force, high-risk vehicle stops, things like that. Investigative tools, investigation, interrogation, criminal liability and law, investigations. Those things we've kind of focused on this year, and we're going to continue that. And again, that adds to retention because people want to be trained. It adds to more trust in our public because we're out there doing the right things and we're not standing there looking like we don't know what we're doing. You know, and equipment and technology modernization, upgrading outdated equipment. Like I said, with the evidence, we're looking at everything. Evidence was way behind. Looking at the equipments that we have in our vehicles, upgrading our IT capabilities. Spencer loves us because every time he has a moment of breathing, we pull something else and go, hey, we need to look into this.
Well,
And it all ends up
that
in
Peregrine
IT.
system you guys looked at was amazing.
Yes.
So I will have to say.
Yeah. Looking at different systems, we pull Spencer in, we pull all the stakeholders in and say, hey, is this something that would benefit us? Is this something that would help us in our jobs? And then we try to go after that. Again, being fiscally responsible, do we really need that at this point in time, or can we wait another year? But again, kicking the can down the road is just going to get us farther and farther behind. And leadership and organizational resilience, optimizing structure and workload distribution to ensure operational continuity, reduce burnout, and strengthen long-term sustainability. So, kind of the future outlook of what we're dealing with.
I am just curious, how are you dealing with lateral transfers to you?
It's hard right now.
Is it really?
Yeah, once Laura starts doing her thing, she'll notice that we're far behind on starting pay. Within the county, I think we're 5 down the rung. As far as top, we're number 5. So there's 4 other police departments that are gaining traction in lateral stuff just because of starting pay. But again, we focused on, training, culture, things like that we can utilize to kind of entice people. But right now, and especially this time of year, usually we see a fall off with laterals because it's the new year. Usually it's new year, new me. So we'll start seeing some applications float in around March time, hopefully. But it's hard. Like I said, during the fiscal year when it starts in July 1, the departments that got cool stuff go, hey, look, we just got a 2% raise. And everybody goes, oh my God, we're so happy. And then that happiness falls off around Christmas time, and then they start looking for a new home. So we're hoping, and again, we've strict and we've become pretty strict with hiring. Right now we have 31, so we have 35 positions. We have 31 that are good to go, out on the field working.
Are your
2 are in
emotions-
the academy.
Are all your emotions on
The
off?
3 emotions are off.
They're driving on their own?
They're on their own. They're doing a great job. They're actually doing really, really well, which I knew they would. But we have 2 that just started the academy in this 2 weeks ago, I think. 2 weeks ago. So they're a couple weeks in. They're doing really good. One's a squad leader already, and the other one's the top for physical fitness and stuff. So that's good. And then I held 2 openings for laterals, hoping to get some laterals. So I didn't want to send. Kind of trying to find that balance. We're about 70%, 5 years or less. So you want to keep the experience. You don't want a bunch of newbies running around like herding cats. But everybody's been doing really well. So we're keeping that open.
And I think on that point, what he said is that 2 things were very important I wanted to highlight is we're seeing that not just there, but others, that have become an employer of choice, that people want to come here and work here because we have a balanced and fair pay scale, and we have a culture that is recognized at least in the Quad Cities or beyond. And so those things are both of value, but as Laura says and the chief said, we see it particularly in police. They're getting a lot of laterals because of that. And so then the other ones start moving their pay scale up. So then it starts getting wider, and then it's like, yeah, I'd rather work there, but maybe the money, there's that gap, you know, and we have to watch that closely, because once you cross that, where you're not in what people would say a fair compensation wage for the same, then they'll choose money over culture.
Always.
Right?
9 times out of 10.
And I'm not, and again, you kind of cross that, it's a fine line. Do you want somebody that just wants the money here, because they're all about the money? Or do you want somebody that really wants to make a difference, that wants to be here for their community? So you gotta find that balance, the happy medium, you know what I mean? So even though we may not be paid the highest, we're still getting quality people coming in going, hey, you guys got something good going on, you're supported by your town folks, your town council loves you, you know, good things are happening. A big thing, I'll tell you right now, is training. Because we do offer that succession planning training. Hey, what are you interested in? You wanna do this? We'll send you to training. We're continually doing that. We have now a set calendar throughout the year where there's mandatory trainings that we're hitting all high liability items, and then there's some extra stuff just to bolster their knowledge base. And that's huge, and a lot of the laterals that we have gotten from locally or outside have said that's one of the draws that we had, was that you guys invest in your employees and you train them. You're just not sticking them out there, and then when something bad happens, you fire them. You know, they have the training to make the right decisions, and that's a huge draw. So we're continuing that kind of pathway.
Public Works constructs and maintains town infrastructure and equipment, including divisions of water, wastewater, streets, facilities maintenance, cemetery, parks maintenance, fleet maintenance, and engineering. Priorities for the upcoming fiscal year: streets project, water reclamation, facility improvements, factory truck purchase, PFAS treatment at the Bright Star production facility, and town hall re-roof.
I do want to bring up on the Vector truck, it is, we did have a question of whether or not that was included. It is included in the current year budget, but it was with the hope that we would get funding for it through WIPA, now that we're not sure on the water reclamation facility piece and how much of that funding is going to be needed for the actual reclamation facility. It's kind of up in the air, so it hasn't been purchased today.
That was 600K?
Correct. It'll be probably higher now with like.
Of course.
It went from 8 down to 6, now we're going to be up to 7.
So we'll be discussing options.
If that just doesn't pan out, is there a way to maybe look into getting a contract with Prescott?
We already have that agreement.
Well, not an IGA, that's for emergencies. This would
Emergency.
actually be a contract to use their trucks. They got new trucks. They could definitely,
We can explore it, see if that's viable.
it might get us by until this becomes more feasible.
This is a brand new truck?
Correct. Yeah, the one we have is two things. It's very, very old, and it's, and you can correct me, I know that Matt's not in here. There's a point, we don't want it to pass to the point where we can't get anything for it. And if there's a critical failure and a couple of very expensive pieces, it's costing us more to maintain. And right now, they're not using it because they're afraid if they have a failure in a critical piece, we won't even have resale value for it. And so we're waiting to see what's going forward. So those are the kinds of things you need to balance with this one. One of the concerns, one of the things we need to do that this product lets us do is we don't have a flushing program, we don't have a sewer inspection and cleanup program, which you should have on a routine basis, and we can't use that without a piece of equipment. So whether we can do that contract, but at some point, again, that's a kick the can thing, we're going to need to replace this equipment.
We've kicked it for the
But
last
maybe,
4 years.
but maybe temporarily that could get us
That could.
good service without the expense.
The one we have is paid off, and
It was paid off.
It
in
catches on
1987.
fire.
Paid off.
It was paid off by the other people there, take that truck from us.
It's pretty cool when they push it out of the fleet yard.
Yeah, so it is, yeah, like, was it 1990s, and there was something that did go wrong, And so we could put some money into it, which would be pretty substantial, but if we don't want to pay that if we're going to get something new. And if we put that money in and then the critical piece goes down and I can't remember what it was, now that investment's gone and we can't resell it. So it's really in a precarious place. We've been trying to get as much out of it as long as we can. And Matt, our facilities manager, who I, trust his judgment completely, is concerned that if we push it now, we're gonna lose any resale value on it. So they're not using it at the moment.
I do know that my first budget meeting that was brought up.
Yeah.
So
We've
this
been
is number
kicking-
5, so it's been well over 4 years that they've been asking for this truck.
To beat a dead horse, GSA has them on their contract
Yes.
at a pretty good savings over what we have to pay if we have to buy it outright. It's just paperwork for GSA that's a pain in the butt.
The auction, from an auction.
No, government, it's good, government's buy direct.
It's a cooperative
Government
purchasing,
Services
a federal
So you buy
cooperative
things that-
purchasing tool.
Same
We
price.
put it in the Territorial Days parades as a dinosaur.
All right, future outlook, more streets projects, water production / storage capacity, sports lighting, and facilities building design.
The town hall re-roof.
This building,
Yeah,
correct.
this building, what's that gonna cost?
Probably 50 plus.
What's wrong with
Let's
it?
file an insurance claim.
It's old.
Yeah, it's old.
This building isn't that, how many square feet is this?
Big. It's got a lot of.
5,000
Go ahead and then I'll go ahead.
If I may interject, I said the same thing last year on what was wrong with it. And we actually, through the town manager meetings, we postponed that at least a year. And a few months ago, the leaks started in Brittany's office where you actually hear them hitting the light fixtures.
I didn't even
Which
notice, is
the
it
team got
asphalt?
out there and stuff
Yeah.
and
Or
took
do
care of
metal.
it.
So maybe metal would be the way to go?
I was gonna say.
And one of the
Okay,
things
level.
with that is, again, our comprehensive program, so we've tried to have where we have a building, like we have parking lot maintenance, we have roofing, so that we're going methodically through our town buildings and trying to hit one a year with a certain amount of money, so if we can do 50,000 every year, then we can go back through and maintain it instead of doing 200,000, and then not do anything and having failures. So we've been budgeting it as a line item and picking which roads we're doing every year. We did kick this one off because it was supposed to be, but we need to not kick this can.
So it was, we do have 30,000 budgeted annually for that roofing maintenance. So it would be an additional piece to that we
There's
typically
there's
consider.
30,000 budgeted annually,
Correct.
every year or
For
just for the building?
For roofing in
some-
general,
Oh,
townwide. Yeah,
Townwide.
so
So
it's
Currently, we're
different
doing animal
projects.
control and the facilities maintenance shop.
But this year, that 30,000 that we have in that line item will be enough.
And the
Biggest
goal
problem
is-
going down the line is all these buildings are getting to be too small for what we're doing. So
That's another.
instead of re-roofs, you may be looking at big roofs on bigger buildings. Only money.
And even though that was a small part of what Laura said, if there are certain places where you can use remote, I know that was one of the things that our finance department in Avondale, was having, really trying to figure out what to do, and they were able to find those positions that could function just as well remotely and be monitored because you're doing financial transactions. And so it put off expansion. So sometimes if you can figure out where that works and how it works, if it does for value, it can also mean less footprint in housing people on staff. So you have to balance those things.
Are there any other comments on public works before we move on?
So mine's gonna be pretty short and sweet, since I was just before you with my staff in October, we went over all the functions of my office. Business is gonna remain as usual, I'm not asking for anything going forward. The only thing I can possibly project is every year I always put money in for an election, because I never know if I'm gonna have a special one on an off cycle. There's been some rumors going out there that there may be a recall, or sorry, a referendum, thank you, not recall, referendum. If we have multiples of those, depending on some outcomes of items that are gonna come before you, that may take some money, and I think Katie said it would probably have to come from general fund. If I haven't pre-planned enough, I have no idea what I can plan for, so, that's basically the only thing that I see projection out next year, 5 years from now, is maybe we have some increase in election costs for a special election.
What does one run?
About 25 to 30,000.
From my understanding, it's been a long time since this town had a recall on you too.
Yes. So I have yet to have a recall, a referendum, or an initiative since I've been in office.
Here we go.
There you go.
Notorious for that. I heard that Jamie Lewis, that was the clerk before Aaron, she said, I can't believe we've gone 3 years in a row without a recall.
Nice.
Need more money for public request for information?
Yes.
Thank goodness I was given a person 2 budget years
2
ago.
years ago.
Because, yes, they are keeping us busy.
Oh.
One of the things, just talking about policy and philosophy, and thank you, Katie, is one of the things that some who've been around for a while, we used to see in budgets that we did contingencies, because you didn't know if electricity or water costs or budget. So each budget had all these big contingencies, and every year you'd be like, why are you only spending this? Well, so we consolidated a lot of that contingency into a bucket, so we don't have to have it as much spread around, and so our budget really truly is closer to reflecting our needs operationally in the departments than it used to be, because they don't have to put that contingency in everything that they do in every budget. So that was a really good operating philosophy that Katie brought to the table that has served us well.
Do you want to add anything before money?
No, I don't have slides for mine or council's budget, because ours are pretty static, and the kind of things that we do, you have your stipends, you have your phones, we put money in for you guys to go to the league every year. So there really isn't anything significant. We did the staffing changes here last year, which has been a great benefit very quickly with Mike and Jesse. And so those are the kinds of, hopefully, the staffing decisions and changes we'll see continue. We make those deliberately, and then they end up having the impact that we hope they had. So with that, Maggie is going to talk about, her budget is under the town manager's budget, so she's going to talk about economic development.
So as you can see here, economic development element of the town manager's office is strategic planning, commercial attraction, and some project management, business retention and expansion, real estate development and reuse, helping to create a tourism economy, small business development, all for improve the well-being and quality of life for our community. So I'll just kind of go through these line by line. So business attraction and expansion is one of the core values of economic development that you learn in ECDEV 101. Both are challenging here, as you guys know. In my past life, I was in commercial real estate since the year 2000, so I'm well versed and know the ins and outs of it, and it's very challenging here. For example, with the grocery store, we definitely are being looked at, but I want everyone to be aware that when you talk to a grocer, that grocer has a relationship with the developer. So the grocer is not putting in the store. You have a developer who builds grocery anchored shopping centers, which I have those relationships with the biggest ones in the state. One of them's Peterson Group, they do all the Southway Albertsons and some of the fries. Another one's Howard Grace, he built the casino, so you develop the relationships with them, and then you speak to the grocers. We've made touches with several of them, fries, Safeway Albertsons, even doing a second store, and primarily Bashas'. So those conversations are being had, and we have a perfect spot for it, which is right next to National Bank. There are 27 acres. It is being looked at. It's being looked at heavily. As everybody knows, there's been a lot going on, not only in the economy, but in the politics of grocery stores. For a while, there was going to be a merger that was starting everything. Everybody had who were sitting on their hands. And then you had, the cost of goods going up, construction costs and all that. So what I'm reading now with that is there's some movement. Prescott Valley is getting to Aldi. We also have the challenge of, we're a bedroom community. So think about like a big city, think of Phoenix or those outlying communities. A lot of the time, the rhetoric is, well, they'll just drive, 15, 20 minutes. Because they still are having a hard time understanding our geographic location and that our service area is not 135 mile radius, it's 20, 30, sometimes more minutes, and what areas we're tracking. So we've been working on that and educating and making those relationships and making them understand that. So it's been working. It's not if it's when on a grocer, but sometimes that also happens when a community next to you reaches that capacity, right? So Prescott Valley. We are competing with Prescott Valley, and I tell you what, that's hard. So just with infrastructure alone, we only have really one spot that we could put a grocery acre center that has infrastructure to it, which is what I was referring to, Southgate Plaza, which has everything, water, all the utilities, and even some of the ADOT work, even though that's probably changed since that was approved years ago. So, and then on the retention and the expansion component, do a pretty good job of that. Actually, partner with a lot of the different agencies, outside agencies like, the Small Business Development Center or the Regional Economic Development Center. And I have worked with several small businesses in the community, name a few, Insurgent, Essence, a bunch of them to help them, coach them, or help them find money. That especially was prevalent during COVID. But unfortunately, we also are in an area where you have people retiring, and it's not always that people are going out of business for fiscal reasons. It's, I'm retiring and done, or et cetera. And then also we have no empty buildings. So good luck trying to open a restaurant here. Before I came on, a couple of the restaurant spaces that were available, now one's a storage center. So it's challenging when you don't have any shelf spaces for these people to go to. And then they're also looking at, maybe a new build, or where you do new build. Then you have private ownership here that's also very complicated. A lot of the private owners here, we had one in escrow over by the hotel, and they're in a trap. Not I didn't have it, but for an example, then they raised the price and said, well, we can get this for it, so they killed that deal. Not only that, as you guys know, ADOT and the highway. That is something I'm going to be really working on this year and figuring out solutions, because we are, as Development Services knows, it's going to be a challenge. We've lost at least one for sure that I know of, restaurant that was going to go in actually next door.
Try to get off of it, try to get to go east or
And
west.
so that's, and so once we have our conversation on an economic development initiatives, we'll a deep dive into all of that. So that kind of covers that. And then hotels. Before COVID hit, I was talking to Choice Hotels and a couple other that actually came out and did site selection. We are definitely ready for more hotels. And again, where the Southgate Plaza is, that's kind of where that's being identified, because it's one of the only places in the area that we could do something like that. And then retail, again, we don't have any empty spaces. So it's challenging, except for one. It's kind of a little bit of a rundown, probably Class C building. So we have a lot of challenges, but not that those are often opportunities that we can embrace and move forward on.
Like she said, we'll dive into those and economic development more and really get into it. She'll talk to it and get some input. But when you give all away those choices, we'll talk more just about budget needs for this year.
So, and all of that will include those infrastructure things in your budget decisions. And then of course tourism is something we've been pushing on for the past about 4 years now. It's been getting some pretty good traction. And the rest of this is just networking with developers and decision makers, having those conversations, making those relationships, and then site selection and real estate development. And then intergovernmental relations is kind of new for me. This is my second year. It's going to be a crazy year, so put on your seatbelt.
We all reached out to Wilson's as far as expanding what they're doing and maybe moving that to Old Home Manor.
I have not personally reached out to them. I heard that was something they were thinking about.
There's interest on their side.
So,
okay.
That might be something that would be, if we could make that very attractive for them to do, that could be twice or 3 times as big as it is now.
I don't want to get off agenda, because I know our Sergeant Martin will get us there. So keep those things when we have the economic development discussion.
I'll let you know.
Thank you.
I didn't hear anything about funding needs or additional funding needs.
The only additional funding that we are gonna be asking for this year is actually cross departments. She was referring to data-driven decision-making. That also is with, when I'm talking to retailers or grocers or trying to business recruit, it's having some other information. So some sort of database for that we can use, so we're gonna be asking for that. And then I know Parks and Recreation wants to be able to monitor, how many people did we have come today to this event? And we can, watch it grow, and then we can decide when we're at max capacity, you need to move on to a bigger space, so that. And then also Jesse, with the grant writing component, it's very helpful in that when you're needing to put data into a grant. So there's about 3 different users for that, so that would be about the only thing.
So looking at what out there is maybe investing in a tool that will give us that data we need to position ourselves better in the argument with the folks that we're talking to about.
And it's just something that.
But any of that funding should be easy to find. We should be able to, we're not talking about, these are de minimis costs.
Well, depending which one, some of them are fairly expensive, there's a range, so we're investigating those, so once we figure out what we think's best, where we're at, we'll probably ask for a supplemental request, because the budget's very low in the town manager's office, so we would need something to get that software, whether it's in our budget or it's in IT's budget, because it's cross-departmental, we expect to bring you a supplemental request for some kind of software.
And then it allows me, when I'm out speaking to people, if I'm at some sort of conference, like ICSE, for example, where it's the retail one, when I go speak to them, okay, sure, I can gab all day long, but if I have data-driven analysis and heat maps and everything showing where track what's coming from and what our actual region is, it's very helpful, because they all use that as well. So, yeah, that's about it. Any other questions?
So now we're getting into discussion, from what you heard, and do you want to take a quick break, or do you want to keep going?
Go.
Okay, all right.
So this,
Tough.
Doing good?
this section is for you all to share with us what your priorities are. We do have some discussion starting points, or you can just start by identifying what you think. A couple of ideas, I'll just read them off so you can think about this. What your vision is for the town in the upcoming budget year. What positive impact you'd like to have on the residents' lives in the next budget year. If there's any quality of life priorities for programming or services. Should continued investment for recreation expansion proceed, so like the community center park improvements and pickleball. Which infrastructure needs feel most urgent or impactful from your point of view, and are any public safety or traffic enforcement concerns, are there any to prioritize? And then on economic development and fiscal health side, should the town establish a budget line item for economic development initiatives, or preliminary start looking at that, support long-term fiscal sustainability? Are there types of economic development projects or efforts you'd like to see prioritized? Where should staff place greater emphasis during the budget process, and where should we proceed carefully? Stop, start, continue. Thoughts there, as well as what trade-offs are you willing or unwilling to make this year? And then back to what Terry had mentioned before on belt tightening versus kicking the can. At what point do we need to address those different items? So anyway, it's just an open discussion for you all, however you all like to proceed with your thoughts in general.
Do you want to go open, or would you like to kind of go down the road? We'd like to hear from everybody. Mayor, do you have a preference?
Until we actually start seeing dollar figures, it's kind of hard to jump in on some of this stuff. The percentage of growth in the town, I mean, the census folks called me and they said, you're gonna have 19,000 people in 5 years. And I went, Lord, I hope not. Because we can't support 19,000 people. I don't care, you bring in every business known to man, I'm still not sure we can do it.
I don't think we have housing.
Infrastructure and housing is just crazy. Until we have actual dollar figures that we can adjust and see what can go, and I think I'd wait on that before any jumping into big decisions.
I just have a question. I hate to bring the airfield up, but if on phase 2, they do the centering, like they did in Florida that they were talking about, wouldn't that all be wholesale?
They won't do that in phase 2,
Or
and
phase
we've already
three.
talked to them about point of sales.
It'd be point of sale?
Retail.
It'd be retail.
The
Point
point
of
of
sale.
sales for military contracts.
But if it's wholesale,
if
sale would
it's
be.
for
Point of
the
sale, yeah.
military contracts, they're not reselling it, so then we would get tax on that, and that's where the business order's being taken. So it's their business location. So we potentially
So,
get some
so
tax there, but
if
it's,
it's, let's say Lockheed Martin, whatever, and they're shipping out to the government, they're buying from Chino Valley, Arizona, that tax revenue would come from Chino Valley, Arizona.
That's the point of sale.
But, right now, if I buy something from Amazon in Ohio, and it gets delivered here, we get the tax revenue.
Well, it's kind of
So
like
it's based-
manufacturing.
well, it's based on your delivery address with the regular retail like that. However, with this, because it would be an actual physical presence in our community, that's where the differentiation can come in. But it's all, to what amount that would be or how that would actually work out, we'd still have to look into.
I think that's another thing to emphasize at this phase one development agreement, that we're gonna require anything that goes out there to be point of sale, so we do get benefit out of it. We don't want wholesale, we don't want,
Been negotiation with
Correct.
them. We're at that point.
I think Tom's off
But
of
that
that
won't
too.
be in, I know we're way off topic. Development agreement one is only for the improvements for
Phase one.
phase one, so you can't put other things.
Oh, no, that's not what they told me online.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah, but I'm just talking about the future, right? So if something happens to the food tax
To a certain
revenue,
extent, you can-
we're screwed. If something happens to the point of sale, or point of delivery, we're screwed, right? So what do we have left? So Aaron needs some more money to hold special elections so we can offer property tax, like Robert was saying, so it's gonna be.
And so absolutely, you
Kinda
know,
like-
part of the
kinda like-
budget,
Say I don't
part
want
of,
nothing.
part of your budget decisions here and the decisions and things that come before you is, you know, how does that give us economic stability going forward? And, you know, what is the trade-off that we're giving in order to gain? Because we have to find those things that bring new revenue streams to us. We absolutely have to do that. But how that is and where that is are the decisions that you folks have to make.
Because if we do have a grocery store come in and the sales tax do stay for a while, how long for a grocery store to come in, realistically, if they said yes tomorrow? 3 years?
How long for
4
them
years?
from?
Like if they, if
We're
they,
gonna be up and out.
Southgate, they said, let's go, let's sign right now, before they're up and
Couple years.
operational.
I'd say 18, 9, anywhere.
2, 3 years?
Yeah,
Yeah.
24, 36 months?
So you're talking
So
5 years.
we're losing, I mean, we're already in the back end negative again.
Behind the curve.
So we're kind of losing all the way around. We don't figure this out.
If you're not
Right
getting any help out of ADOT or
Yes.
anybody else, either.
Yes. Absolutely.
But I think Robert's onto something is, I mean, we do need a property tax, I hate to say it.
I don't think
Taxes,
they're ever
but
gonna get it by the voters.
But we can at least explore what it might bring and what it would cost, so you can.
right, we need that because if
discussion.
that law goes through, or HB, what is it?
The food tax?
Yeah, the food tax,
Yeah.
that goes through, I mean, at least we have something on the back burner to get their,
What's the
to get it going
loss?
for a special election, right?
What's the loss on food tax?
It was, when we looked at it last time, it was about 1.7 million.
16.1%. We were one of the higher ends. And last year, basically, the agreement was, if you have one, it stays the same, can't go above 2, I think it was 2%. And then if you wanted to make a change down the road, you'd have to take it to vote.
Yeah,
in your
that was the
community.
old one that
Yes.
failed, but this
No, no,
one-
it didn't fail. That gets voted on this year. So what he's doing this year, BSUG's bringing back another amended version after it's already been agreed upon by all the mayors in the state of Arizona, for whatever reason that his politics drive him to do so. So, by saying that basically anything that qualifies for SNAP benefits should not be taxed. Well, SNAP benefits,
SNAP
according to
benefits
federal law,
owns
you don't
everything.
get taxed.
You
Should not be
don't,
taxed.
the people that are already getting the benefit already get it, so
Yes.
that would include everybody else, so
Yes.
it's basically no
So
food tax.
I don't, I mean,
Except-
there's no crystal ball to say whether or not that'll be on the ballot,
A
because he
little over
said,
$1 million off the budget, probably.
And everybody
So
thought, as she
Cindy's,
said, that
all her budget
they
it's not-
resolved it last
Right,
year,
right.
they agreed to this, and we thought it was
Yeah.
done, and that was
And he's pushing hard, so I don't see it really going away.
No, it's not gonna go away this time.
Well, I mean, it's in a bill form and the ATR again. So, but the more awareness and the more people realize what it really is. You know, I explained it the other day, I said, so basically I go to the grocery store, I use my SNAP benefits and I get a ton of groceries. I'm in my car and I'm driving home and hit a pothole and pop my tire. Well, I just got my, no tax on my foods, but there's a pothole in the road because that little small community can't fix potholes because they don't have that tax anymore. And that's a real thing. We are, 16%, I think Taylor's 37%.
Yeah.
You're never gonna be
I mean,
able to.
it's a real killer.
And you're never gonna be able to educate the public, it just doesn't.
Anytime you have
it's not
tax
happening.
Well, that's my
in
job,
it,
is get the social media going on.
it's anti-taxation.
Okay.
Well, that's where
Yeah.
monthly, monthly with the mayor and stuff like that, maybe
Yes.
something like that can start educating
Start
people.
educating.
We're pushing.
Yeah. What else do you have, Vice Mayor?
Cindy, as far as the pool entrance, if you raise up the fees, how many people are not gonna go to West Valley, you think? Think they'll still come? And then, leasing out the fields for baseball, for softball tournaments, is that still going on? Is any interest?
Absolutely, in collaboration with parks. Average fee for Little League is about $3,000 for their season.
Yeah. Okay, so, yes, and then getting outside softball tournaments.
Correct.
We send it to some of those, guys that put the sports tournaments on.
Mhm.
Some of those big, some of those softball tournaments are pretty big.
Huge.
And then, what's the cost for the pool right now? To get in?
$3.50?
So if we raise it up to $5,
$3.
we're gonna have that
$3.
discussion,
It's $3.
$3.
That's right, we didn't want change.
Yeah, but we need
we're
to
gonna have
fight
that discussion in, when? Change?
No.
So this
We're
fee's
gonna
gonna, yeah.
We're gonna be looking at all of our fees again, because it's something that should be done on an annual basis. So, it's something that we probably coordinate with the water and sewer rate study, but we could probably do something quicker for just the aquatics fees. Council would like to see that before,
Yeah.
well, just so it's before the season starts, if that's something you guys wanna,
True
look
enough.
at before that.
I mean, if you go like a $5, it's only big, I mean, everything else,
I don't think it has to go up that much.
Up to
$6?
$5 or add $5.
no, $5, so no
From
change.
3 to 5.
Straight $5 bill, no change.
Oh, I
So the only thing the
You gotta
kids
bring a
get to do in
$5 bill.
town, we're gonna raise that.
Yeah, so two.
Well, I mean-
So $2 rate.
Right?
It is true, I mean, I'm all for that. You do need to remember, I think we all need to be cognizant of the community that uses the pool probably more than anyone else is the community directly behind the pool.
Well, and then we can also have, why can't we have local fee versus out-of-town fee?
You could, but quite
You mean we
honestly,
could charge
it was
all
a
those?
challenge having
Well,
changed,
more money
like
than-
when it was $3.50 for a pool admission, it was,
Yes.
Yeah, they get a solid amount.
it was difficult, and I can't even imagine them checking driver's licenses or trying to understand that when that quantity comes
Dude, these
through.
kids are spending $5 on a Red Bull, I mean, come on,
Yeah, right.
and they live right across the street,
Yeah.
It's true.
I mean, seriously, they've got
They got
$20 in
cell phones.
junk, $20 in junk food.
I agree.
So we'll look at the pool.
Bringing that back sooner for at least a study session on the fees.
What's the draw from PV? Like, why are they coming to Chino instead of?
Couldn't tell you, and that's actually something we've planned for this year, we're going to implement
Less
a,
crowded?
can you tell us your zip code? Just mostly because we are so curious as to where everyone's coming from, but we see it a lot in all of our events also.
Where's the,
Is
pool
that
at
people
PV?
come from.
Mountain View?
Yeah.
Oh, that's 'cause it's dangerous there.
Kids over there peeing in the pool.
There's like gunfights and stuff over there.
Software that goes down.
And it's the
Yeah.
exact same
Yeah.
facility, it's the same setup as our facility, they were built right around the same time.
But ours
So ours
is
is
nicer.
ours is safer.
So much nicer,
Is
safer,
it safer?
nicer.
It's nicer.
Well, everything about it's basically.
Really, I
identical.
figured it would be
If the
bigger.
YMCA ever
Yeah.
does the pool portion of it there, they were going to close, Mountain Valley.
And the YMCA is $10 to get in, is it a $10 daily use?
I think it's less than that, I only think it's about $5. that is something I'll check on, actually, now what it
As
is.
part of the conversation.
And what's the hours for open swim for that money?
It's all day, well, not all day, I apologize, noon to 4, so 4 hours.
Get off track.
Okay, yeah, so we'll bring that back to you. Anything else, Vice Mayor? Councilmember Switzer.
Yeah, like Tom said, I think we need to see figures, but, just economic development, I think, is the number one priority over roads, everything. It's huge. And then maybe even hotel over a grocery store. I know everybody wants grocery store, but if the tax thing's going away anyways, it's just not.
No, I disagree. We need a grocery store and another grocery store.
You know, I shop at Safeway exclusively. I don't go to Fry's. I don't know why everybody complains, but.
Because they are higher than anybody else.
Yeah, but the money you're gonna spend driving to town, just,
Okay.
the money you spend
They're
driving to
okay.
town, you just soaked up your $3 savings that you
Okay,
you-
so hotel and grocery.
Yeah, shop online, you gotta use the app, you gotta take advantage of the coupon deal, otherwise, yeah, you're gonna get ripped off. But anyways, that's another
Okay, so
story.
hotel you think is important?
Yeah, and everything else,
Yep.
you know, any retail, that's huge. And just to remind, you know, from 2020 to 2024, we had a 40% increase in staff in Chino. And benefits and salaries increased by 52%. So we really gotta keep, that was in a 4-year period, and population only went up 8%. So we just gotta, I know it's tough, but we gotta keep cap on staff
Understood.
salaries, because they go up every year. It's a huge expenditure. And then, I'm anti-tax to the limit, but I just don't think the town's gonna survive without a property tax. I really don't think it will. Like Tom says, you can bring in everything, it's just not gonna be enough down the road. And the sooner we take a look at that, the better. Uphill battle, I agree 100%, but, and like I say, I could be a poster boy for anti-tax. But maybe if it's not a giant, I don't know how, you know, if you have 9,000 homes, $50, that's like 450,000, that's not gonna get us out of the hole either, but, it's not gonna hurt either. Yeah,
Again, I'm gonna
just
go with
picking a flat tax, yeah.
economic development is huge. The roads are gonna be huge because that's what the public wants. It's not our choice to make, it's theirs. They put us here to make the choice, and they've told us overwhelmingly for how many years we need the roads fixed. I think the idea of coming up and doing the new idea that we have for repaving versus tearing it all the way down and building a whole new road is good, because we'll get a lot more done for the same amount of money, but that's what everybody wants. I mean, and just so, this kind of briefly off the topic, I belong to an organization called goodparty.org, and if you're an elected official, they will run surveys for you. I had them run a survey this year. 500 went out, I got 28 responses. So people around here don't want to get involved, they just want to complain. But of the 28, I had a great response from a lady. She said, quit trying to build something new in Chino Valley. We have lots of land here, we have all of Old Home Manor. Go down to Wickenburg and look at how many horses are down there running every day of the week. And then find out how many of those people come from this area. It's huge. So I think, again, if we looked at Olson's or somebody else to go out there and put an event center out there for equestrian, it could be big, big money for us in the long run.
It could be county fairgrounds, I mean, it could be.
Yeah, there's 1,000 horses in Wickenburg every day of the week that don't
It's
live
the
there.
Roken capital.
So to your point, I've spoke to ladies over at the equestrian center a couple of times and advised them, call local other areas throughout the state that are big rodeo areas, get some stands, get some seating, call them, they're getting rid of that stuff all the time.
Yep.
In fact, in Williams, I can't remember, one of the council members had called, so they just got rid of some stuff, and so if they could form a partnership together, It's a great idea. Those kind of events bring a ton
Yeah.
of money.
Okay, so events,
That's
Be
it.
careful of old stands because they have to meet certain building code requirements. And when they're older, even if they lost nuts and bolts, they won't go together right and you'll have a safety issue. So
But you gotta
please
look at, I mean,
Be careful.
2 months ago, one of the schools in Prescott was selling all of their aluminum stands, just because the school got bigger and the shorter stands didn't work anymore, so they needed bigger ones, so.
Those could
You know,
be
those
valued.
kind of things is you just gotta keep an eye out for, but we have to have a plan for it first, it doesn't do any good to look. We
okay,
don't know what we want. That's it.
that's good.
I agree with the other council members on that, and I just wanna let all the staff know that you guys are doing great work. You guys do a lot of work, time consuming, but you guys do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I agree.
If I won the lotto, I'd give you guys a few dollars here and there.
I think there's no greater requirement right now than that EQ basin. That's number
Oh.
one.
Yep.
EQ basin has gotta be the number one priority of this town. Like Tom, I agree, it would be better to have the overall picture and then we can kind of move it around instead of trying to make the numbers fit into everything. With the courts, if you're allocated a position, I have no objections from my position, you should be filling your position. If you have it authorized and it's funded, in my opinion, you should fill it. I'm also open to listening to development services long-term picture, I think that's a good idea. Yes, it's a short-term cost that I don't really like, but long-term, it pays out, and to me, that's fiscal management. So I do like that, plus it gives you the leadership you want. At the same time, if we, and that's up to the town manager to find a way, but I also think it's a good idea for him to have this supervisor or a lead role, that they can take responsibility for their department and not have to tax their immediate supervisor 24/7, you know? Maybe you could steal from Peter to pay Paul to increase that or whatever, but that's it. But we've heard it, economic development, that's such a broad word. With economic development and listening to the people I have, it really comes down to a lot of infrastructure. No infrastructure, you can't ask these developers, everybody thinks we can, to build a city for you. Yes, you can put some of it on them, but I'm sorry, when it comes to economic, okay, I go over here, it's gonna cost me $3 million, or I come over here and it's gonna cost me 1.5, I'm going over there. And Chino has lost out on a lot of businesses, I suspect, over the years on that decision. So we really gotta earmark money to expand infrastructure, water hydrants, water suppression, you know, all that. So nobody wants to have a restaurant on a septic. You know? So
And that's a very good
economic
point.
development isn't a cost by itself, it's part of a bigger picture. So really, it comes down
Gotta
to
fund it.
infrastructure.
Gotta fund it,
Huh?
gotta fund it.
Yeah, and that's where we struggle, and that's why I'm thinking we gotta, even if it's just get water out there, you know, water.
And that's where that conversation we will have is, let's pick those priority, you know, cause if it's shotgun or, you know, let's pick a spot and let's go for it and let's put some money into marketing and try to get it, like you say, instead of overwhelming, it's kind of the termite principle, right?
I
Start
think we're on a
somewhere.
head start, if I think, I know where Maggie's gonna take us, but I'll wait until the presentation, but I think there's some spots in this town. It'll still cost us some money, but I think there's spots in this town, which you guys know better than I do, that it could turn this town around economically, but it's gonna take some sacrifice, big decisions. I'm all for it, because economic sustainability is the number one priority of this town.
Any other things that you want us to know as we have we're using this kind of as marching orders to get to the next step of getting a sense of where you're at and what kind of things we're gonna bring to you, so I know you don't have the big picture and sense of how much money we're gonna have or not have, but it's still important to all of us to hear where you're at and where our focus is at, so we can make some decisions and when we come to you for the next step. So if there's anything else that you might think be helpful for us in planning and coming before you, you know, we certainly want to hear that. If you think about it later, please share it.
Little off subject, but with all this on your plate, do you feel, I know Larry and John had mentioned it, as far as not having meetings in August for the break, do we want to fill in an extra, maybe one meeting or something with all this on your plate, so we can get more done?
I think let's get through the budget and see where we're in May and June, and we'll know what things are out there and what comes from the economic development, and then we'll decide if another one somewhere during that time would be of value. But thank you for offering.
So on the 13th, you're gonna bring your information to us on the 13th?
Oh, the budget schedule?
Of April?
Yes, April 13th,
Yes,
and then April 27th? Oh,
correct. We'll be discussing both of those dates.
And then what's May 20th? It's a yellow one.
May 20th, that is for internal meeting. It's just an internal meeting with staff and Terry, letting them
Okay.
know what is kind of preliminarily moving forward for the tentative budget for next week. So that one's not
Still
gonna impact you all.
So it's a staff date, not a council
Yeah.
date.
Okay, so April 27th, and we're probably gonna make our final decisions.
Correct, except we'll have the ability on the 12th, on the regular meeting on the 12th, to also have a study session to discuss things if they're not wrapped up on the 27th. So you guys have enough time.
So you're gonna do like we did this last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct, so we'll present a preliminary to you on the 13th, but you would have it a good week before so you can review it. And then we'll discuss it on the 13th, and then probably come back with any of the follow-up stuff on the 27th. And then potentially May 12th if needed.
If there's still anything unresolved that you want to take it more conversation, we still have one more date to do that. So we used to just have one, then we went to two, and we added a potential third to make sure you have plenty of time to discuss all the things, get all the information you want, so you're comfortable.
Yeah, and technically it can be discussed even at the tentative budget adoption, because that sets the maximum cap. So even at that point, it can be scaled back if so needed before the final adoption.
You just can't add anything.
Correct.
Between the 26th, you can go down, but you can't go up.
And Terry, if I may, Councilman Grenier,
Yes.
the YMCA is $5 admission, and one child gets in free with each paid adult.
YMCA is $5 admission.
$5, and then one child gets in free with each paid adult.
What's the age limit on the child?
They're 21.
17.
35.
Okay.
And this is my grandma.
We don't charge 0 to 3, we don't charge
Okay.
or whatever it is.
Not under.
We got some good notes and things we'll be coming back to you with the study session. I think we're all very anxious to get into the economic development discussion. Thanks staff and Katie for all the time. A lot of time went in getting ready for today. And they've already deep dived into their budgets, preparing for the next step. So I want to thank you all for that. And I will take a moment, Terry, to appreciate your comments. And I do, the smaller you are, the more important every position is. And in this town, we have invested in good people, and we see that investment paying off every single day. And so I also want to reiterate that and thank you and your teams for all the work that you do.
Yeah, because I was telling Terry, I had a lady comment about the new town manager and said her and a couple of her friends just think she's doing a great job.
Well, I'm just a reflection of the team, so but thank you. I appreciate it.
Anything else?
Doing very good.
Yep.
We'll see everybody tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow night, and thank you. We look forward to you tomorrow night.